I never expected to find proof of my invisibility in a dusty photo album, but there it was, spread across my parents' coffee table on a quiet Sunday afternoon. My sister Lark's entire life documented in vivid color, her first steps, dance recitals, graduations. My life, apparently, could be summed up in 3 blurry snapshots tucked in the back. My name is Kala, and I've spent 28 years trying to matter to my family. Oh, you found the albums. My mother's voice carried that familiar note of forced cheerfulness as she bustled into the living room. Lark was just asking about these. She wants to recreate some of her baby photos when her little one arrives. Of course she did. My perfect little sister, about to give our parents their first grandchild. I forced myself to keep flipping pages, even as my throat tightened. Funny, I don't remember this vacation to Martha's Vineyard. Oh, that was the summer you were at that urban planning camp you insisted on attending. Mom waved her hand dismissively. Such a waste of time when you could have been networking with the right people here. I bit back the reminder that I'd actually won an award at that camp, one that led to my current position at a prestigious firm. They hadn't attended that ceremony either. The sound of the front door opening saved me from responding. Lark's voice rang out, followed by the deeper tones of my husband Adrian. They'd been spending a lot of time together lately, planning some surprise baby shower thing. At least, that's what they said. There's my gorgeous sister. Lark swept in, her barely visible baby bump somehow the center of attention already. Adrian followed, and something in the way his eyes skipped over me made my stomach clench. We were just looking at old photos, Mom said, already moving to hover over Lark. Remember this dress? You looked like an angel at your first communion. I closed the album quietly, my fingers lingering on its leather cover. I should get going. Big presentation tomorrow. Nobody protested. Nobody even looked up. As I gathered my things, I caught a glimpse of Adrian's hand brushing Lark's lower back, so quick I might have imagined it. But the way she leaned slightly into his touch, that was real. Just like the growing distance in my marriage was real. Just like the photos missing from that album were real. Something shifted inside me then, a quiet click like a lock turning. I'd spent my whole life trying to be seen by people who had perfected the art of looking past me. Maybe it was time they learned what it felt like to be the ones forgotten. That night, I couldn't sleep. The image of Adrian's hand on Lark's back kept playing in my mind like a skipping record. I slipped out of bed, leaving Adrian's sleeping form behind, and made my way to our home office. The glow of my laptop screen illuminated a photo from our wedding day, Adrian and me, looking young and stupidly in love. 5 years felt like a lifetime ago. Back then, I thought I'd finally found someone who saw me, really saw me. A notification pinged. Lark had posted another late-night Instagram story. My finger hovered over it before clicking. There she was at some downtown bar I recognized, raising a glass of what looked suspiciously like alcohol despite her supposed pregnancy. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. Adrian had told me he was working late at the office. I checked his location on our shared phone plan. Downtown. Same area as the bar. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. The house felt too quiet, too full of shadows and things left unsaid. I grabbed my keys and drove to the one place I knew I could think clearly, my old college campus where I'd first met Adrian. The security guard recognized me from my frequent late-night visits to the urban planning lab. Rough night, Miss Emerson? Just needed some air, Joe. I managed a weak smile. I walked to the bench where Adrian had first asked me out. He'd been so different then, passionate about architecture, full of dreams about building something meaningful together. Now he barely asked about my projects, always too busy with whatever mysterious work kept him out late. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Lark's not feeling well. Could you pick up some ginger tea and drop it by her place tomorrow morning? I typed back, sorry, early meeting. Then added, maybe Adrian can help? He's in the area. The typing bubbles appeared and disappeared 3 times before her response came through. Don't be difficult, Kala. Family helps family. Family helps family. Unless that family member is me. I pulled up my photos from earlier that day, zooming in on that old album. In one of my 3 photos, little 5-year-old me stood alone at a piano recital, clutching a participation certificate. Lark had been sick that day, so no one had stayed to watch me perform. The pieces were falling into place like a twisted puzzle. The late nights. The secret meetings. The way Lark touched her barely there bump like it was her ticket to something bigger. My phone buzzed again. Adrian. Working late. Don't wait up. I took a deep breath of the cool night air and made a decision. If they wanted to play happy families behind my back, fine. But this time, I wouldn't be the only one left standing alone with a participation certificate. The doctor's words hung in the air like smoke, choking me. I'm sorry, Mrs. Holt, but your chances of natural conception are extremely low. She kept talking about percentages and options. But I'd stopped listening, fixated instead on the family photo propped on her desk, a perfect arrangement of smiling faces and matching sweaters. My phone buzzed. Another group text from Mom. Exciting news. Lark and Tyler's first ultrasound tomorrow. Everyone's welcome. Everyone. Right. I switched my phone off and left the clinic, walking aimlessly through downtown. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent years avoiding pregnancy, carefully planning my career, waiting for the right time. Now here I was, $30,000 into fertility treatments, while Lark accidentally got pregnant after dating Tyler for 3 months? My office was dark when I returned, but I couldn't face going home yet. Adrian would be there, ready with his rehearsed optimism. We'll try again, he'd say, not meeting my eyes. There are other options. A knock on my door made me jump. Working late? It was Tyler, looking uncomfortable in his suit. He worked in the building's accounting firm. Just catching up on some things. I gestured vaguely at my blank computer screen. He shifted his weight. Listen, I need some advice. About Lark. Something in his voice made me look up. What about her? She's been different lately. Secretive. Always on her phone, disappearing for hours. He ran a hand through his hair. And this pregnancy. The timing feels off. My throat tightened. What do you mean? We hadn't. You know, for weeks before she announced it. I was away on business. The pieces clicked together like a terrible puzzle. The late nights. Adrian's distance. Lark's barely visible bump that 3 months along. My phone screen lit up with a text from Adrian. Working late again. Don't wait up. I pulled up Instagram, hands shaking. Lark's latest story showed her at our favorite coffee shop, the one right below Tyler's office. But the reflection in the window behind her showed Adrian's distinctive blue suit jacket. Tyler, I've heard myself say, when exactly were you away on business? All of February. Why? Lark had announced her pregnancy in early March. 3 months ago. I stood up, gathering my things. You should come to the ultrasound tomorrow. In fact, I insist. Really? I thought you'd skip it, given everything. I managed a smile that felt more like baring teeth. Oh no, I wouldn't miss this for the world. Sometimes revenge doesn't need elaborate planning. Sometimes it just needs perfect timing and a front row seat to watch karma unfold. The ultrasound waiting room felt like a stage set for a tragedy. My mother fussed over Lark while Adrian paced near the window, checking his phone every few seconds. Tyler sat next to me, his knee bouncing nervously. Mrs. Emerson? The technician appeared, her smile faltering as our entire group stood. Oh, quite a crowd. We usually only allow 2 people in. The father and I will go, Lark announced, reaching for Adrian's hand instead of Tyler's. The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler's face went blank. What did you just say? My mother's hand flew to her pearls. Lark, darling, you're confused. Tyler is. Actually, I cut in, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I think we'd all like to hear the answer to that. Lark's mask slipped for just a moment, her eyes darting between Adrian and Tyler. I just meant. Adrian's been so supportive, like a brother. Like a brother? I pulled out my phone, pulling up the coffee shop photo. Is that what brothers do? Secret meetings? Late night texts? Adrian stepped forward. Kala, don't. Don't what? Don't tell the truth? That's rich, coming from my infertile husband. The technician backed away. I'll give you folks a moment. Infertile? Tyler's voice cracked. But the baby is about as real as their excuses, I said, watching Lark's hand drop from her supposedly pregnant belly. Funny how you never seem to get bigger, Lark. Just strategic loose clothing and careful camera angles. My mother's face hardened. Kala, you're just jealous because you can't. Because I can't have children? Or because I can't lie as convincingly as your perfect daughter? Lark's composure finally shattered. You don't understand. Tyler was gone, and Adrian was there, and it just happened. But then nothing happened, and I had to say something to keep everyone happy and happy. Tyler laughed bitterly. You faked a pregnancy to keep people happy? I needed more time. Lark's voice rose hysterically. Time to figure out how to fix everything. Adrian wouldn't look at any of us. I should go. Yes, I said quietly. You should. And take these with you. I dropped a manila envelope in his lap, divorce papers I'd had drawn up the day before. My mother reached for me. Darling, let's not be hasty. I stepped back. No. I'm done being the understanding one. The forgiving one. The invisible one. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Lark? The fertility clinic called yesterday. Turns out I'm not the broken one after all. Funny how karma works. The last thing I heard as I walked away was my mother's wail and Tyler's quiet, devastating, how could you? Sometimes the best revenge is simply stepping aside and letting the truth do its work. The aftermath of the ultrasound revelation spread through our family like wildfire. I spent a week ignoring calls and texts, holed up in a hotel room while Adrian moved his things out of our house. Then my father showed up at my office, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Your mother hasn't slept in days, he said, settling heavily into the chair across from my desk. Lark's disappeared. No one knows where she is. I kept typing, eyes on my screen. Sounds like a Lark problem. She left a note. He pulled out a crumpled paper. Says she's going to make things right. Something in his voice made me look up. What are you telling me? Tyler's pressing charges. Fraud, emotional manipulation. His lawyer's building quite a case. My fingers stilled on the keyboard. And Adrian. He's agreed to testify against her. A laugh bubbled up, bitter and sharp. Of course he has. Anything to save his own skin. Kala, please. My father's voice cracked. She's your sister. Was my sister. I stood up, walking to the window. Where was this concern when she was sleeping with my husband? When she was faking a pregnancy for attention? We failed you both. He moved to stand beside me. Your mother and I. We thought pushing you would make you stronger. We thought favoring Lark would protect her weakness. Instead, we created this mess. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. An image loaded. Lark, sitting on the edge of the bridge where we used to play as kids, her legs dangling over the water. Jesus, my father whispered, looking over my shoulder. That's live. She's streaming it. Another text came through. I'm sorry, Kala. You win. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys. This wasn't what I wanted. Revenge was supposed to feel satisfying, not like this hollow ache in my chest. Where are you going? My father called after me. To stop her from making things worse. I paused at the door. But after this? We're done. All of us. Kala. No. I wanted justice, not this. My voice hardened. But make no mistake, I'm not doing this for her. I'm doing it for me. Because I refuse to let her turn herself into a victim again. Not this time. As I drove toward the bridge, my phone kept buzzing with notifications from Lark's stream. Each one felt like another weight on my chest, another reminder that sometimes winning feels an awful lot like losing. But first, I had to make sure she lived long enough to face the consequences of her actions. After that, I could finally walk away. I found Lark exactly where I expected, perched on the bridge's edge, her social media stream still running. The setting sun painted everything in shades of red, like a warning. Don't come any closer, she called out, her voice carrying over the rush of water below. I mean it, Kala. I stayed by my car, keys still in hand. Jumping won't fix anything. Tyler's lawyers will still press charges. Adrian will still testify. I know. She laughed, hollow and broken. That's the point. Everyone will remember me as the tragic victim of a cruel sister's revenge. The realization hit me like a slap. Even now, she was manipulating the narrative, turning herself into the martyr. Her phone sat propped against the railing, capturing everything. You really think this makes you the victim? My voice cracked. After everything you've done? I did it because I had to. She turned to face me, mascara streaking down her cheeks. You had everything, the career, the perfect husband, the life I wanted. I had to take something back. I had everything? The laugh that escaped me sounded foreign, almost hysterical. You had our parents' love, their support, their acceptance. All I had was Adrian, and you took him too. A crowd was gathering now, drawn by the spectacle. I could hear sirens in the distance. Then we're even, Lark said, standing up on the railing. The wind whipped her hair around her face. You wanted revenge? Congratulations. You won. I took a step forward. Lark. But here's the thing about winning, sister dear. She smiled, that same sweet smile she'd used to charm everyone our whole lives. Sometimes the prize isn't worth the cost. She stepped backward into empty air. I lunged forward, my fingers catching the edge of her sleeve. For one endless moment, we hung there, me half over the railing, her suspended between life and death. In her eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before, fear. Real fear. My shoulders screamed in protest as I held on. Below us, the water churned dark and hungry. Please, she whispered, no longer performing for her audience. I don't want to die. The choice crystallized in that moment. Let go and let karma finish what I'd started. Or pull her back and save the sister who'd never once tried to save me. The sirens were getting closer. My arm felt like it was being torn from its socket. And I realized, with startling clarity, that this moment would define us both, not just in the eyes of others, but in our own souls. I made my choice. 6 months after the bridge incident, I sat across from Adrian in our final divorce mediation. He looked smaller somehow, his confident facade cracked by recent events. There's something you should know, he said, sliding a medical report across the table. I got tested. I'm the one who's infertile. Always have been. The irony hit like a wave, almost making me laugh. So Lark's fake pregnancy would have been impossible anyway. He wouldn't meet my eyes. She didn't know. Neither did I until what? He swallowed hard. Until my new girlfriend actually got pregnant. The doctors confirmed it couldn't be mine. This time I did laugh, the sound echoing off the conference room walls. My lawyer shifted uncomfortably beside me. Karma's a fascinating thing, isn't it? I placed my hand protectively over my own growing belly, watching his eyes track the movement. Life has a way of revealing truth, eventually. His face paled. For months along. Turns out I wasn't the problem either. The door opened and Ethan walked in, right on cue. He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, and I felt the simple gold band on his finger brush against my neck. Adrian's jaw tightened. You moved on fast, says the man who slept with my sister. Kala, Ethan's voice was soft but firm. We don't need to do this. But I did. One last time. You know what the difference is between us, Adrian? When I found happiness, I didn't have to steal it from anyone else. My phone buzzed, a text from Lark's rehabilitation center. She was doing better, they said. Learning to live with her choices. Part of me hoped it was true. The papers are ready to sign, my lawyer interrupted, spreading documents across the table. Adrian picked up his pen, then hesitated. I really did love you, Kala. No, I said quietly, you loved the idea of me. The version you could control and shape into what you wanted. Just like my parents did with Lark. I signed my name with steady hands, each stroke a step toward freedom. I hope your new girlfriend's more real with you than my sister was, I added, standing up. And I hope you're more real with her than you were with me. Ethan took my hand as we walked out, leaving Adrian with his regrets and revelations. Outside, spring sunlight warmed my face, and I felt our baby kick, a small reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. 3 years later, I stood in my backyard, watching Oliver chase butterflies through the garden I'd planted. His laughter carried on the spring breeze, pure and untainted by family legacy or expectation. The invitation to Lark's wedding sat unopened on our kitchen counter. She'd met someone during her recovery, a therapist, ironically. My parents had called twice this week, pleading with me to attend. "Mama, look." Oliver held up a dandelion, his face glowing with discovery. I knelt beside him, showing him how to blow the seeds into the wind. Each tiny parachute carried a wish, a possibility. Ethan appeared in the doorway. "Your sister's here." I hadn't expected that. Lark stood awkwardly by our front gate, looking smaller than I remembered. No designer clothes or perfect makeup, just my sister, raw and real. "He's beautiful," she said, watching Oliver play. "I saw the photos online, but why are you here, Lark?" She pulled something from her bag, the old family photo album. "I found this while cleaning out Mom and Dad's attic. They're downsizing, moving to Florida." "Of course they are." I almost smiled. Running away was a family tradition, after all. I added something. She opened the album to the back, where my 3 blurry photos used to be. Now there were dozens more. Me at college graduation, my first project completion, my wedding to Ethan, Oliver's birth. "Mom had these all along," Lark said quietly. "She just never put them in. I thought maybe you should have them." Oliver ran over, curious about our visitor. "I'm 3, he announced proudly. "I know," Lark smiled, then looked at me. "I'm getting help. Real help this time. Learning to be honest about who I am, not who everyone wants me to be." I watched my son examine the dandelion stem with intense concentration, so much like his father in his quiet curiosity. Sometimes the hardest person to be honest with is yourself. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Lark said, setting the album on the garden wall. "Just wanted you to know that you were never invisible." I was just too busy performing to really see. She turned to leave, then paused. "Your son. He has your smile. The real one, not the one we learned to fake at family functions." I waited until her car disappeared before opening the album. Between the new photos, Lark had slipped a note. "You won by choosing truth." "I won by finally learning from you." Oliver tugged my hand, offering another dandelion. Together, we blew the seeds into the future, watching them dance away on the wind, each one carrying its own story, its own chance at something real.
"Will you go out with me?" Just a week after meeting him, he bared his heart on the very first day. We had been spending time together, and his sudden declaration caught me off guard. I found myself saying yes. A year later, with no reason to part ways, he proposed. "I promise to protect you for the rest of my life. Will you marry me?" It was a touching promise, but looking back, I wonder if it was just a line he was used to delivering. My name is Melissa. I'm a 30-year-old office worker, and my fiancé, Sam, is a 32-year-old police officer. We met at a hobby event, thanks to an invitation from a high school friend. As I neared my 30s, marriage was on my mind, but I hadn't had any romantic prospects. I joined the event last year on a whim, and Sam, for some reason, seemed interested in me. We started dating, and a week later, he confessed his feelings over dinner. Sam, who comes from a long line of police officers, introduced me to a world I was unfamiliar with. My only exposure to law enforcement had been through TV dramas, which painted it as quite glamorous. Recently, Sam proposed, although his job sometimes kept him away. I felt I could build a future with him. He often complimented me, which made me happy, but some of his remarks stung. For example, he mentioned, "We don't have any high school graduates in our family," which felt like a subtle dig at my educational background. It's true that I only graduated high school, while Sam is a university graduate, so perhaps it was inevitable he would see things this way. My family consists solely of my mother, and my priority was to find a job and support her, rather than attend college. When I explained this to Sam, he seemed to understand. My parents divorced when I was young due to my father's debts, and my mother raised me on her own without any support. I didn't want to burden her with college expenses. Though I was encouraged to pursue a scholarship, I preferred to start working right away and support us. When I asked Sam if he had any debts, he laughed and assured me he was debt-free. Given my aversion to debt, Rooted in my mother's struggles, I was relieved. Even scholarships felt like a form of debt to me, and I was determined not to borrow money for college. Relieved by Sam's reassurance, I agreed to marry him. Although I now live away from home, I stay in touch with my mother frequently. I've shared the news of our engagement with her, and she was overjoyed. While we haven't had the chance to introduce Sam to her due to his busy schedule, we're planning a meeting between both families soon. Before that family meeting, Sam asked me to visit his parents' house. Nervously, I accompanied him to his family home. His mother, who greeted us at the door, seemed reserved. After exchanging pleasantries, we were shown into the living room where his father was waiting. His father exuded an imposing presence, which made me a bit uncomfortable. Once we settled in, his father began recounting stories from his career as a police officer, going into lengthy detail about the cases he had solved. He insisted that only he could have cracked these cases, and all I could do was nod along. The tea my mother-in-law had prepared grew cold, while I struggled to find a moment to enjoy the sweets in front of me. Glancing at the clock, I was dismayed to see that only 20 minutes had passed. The time seemed to stretch endlessly. Sam, sitting beside me, seemed unfazed. He sipped his tea and munched on snacks, even requesting a second cup from his mother. I couldn't help but wonder if he was always this thoughtless or if he had become so accustomed to his father's monologues that he no longer considered my discomfort. Despite my attempts to tune out his father's lengthy monologue, nearly an hour of one-sided conversation left me feeling exhausted. When I finally reached for my tea, it was cold. My mother-in-law attempted to make a fresh pot, but Sam interrupted with, "Melissa likes her drinks lukewarm," which left me drinking the cold tea. While I do prefer my beverages lukewarm, I would have preferred to have enjoyed it before it turned cold. When Sam's father went out for a cigarette, the lingering smell of tobacco was a bit unpleasant, though I was grateful he smoked outside. Just as I was adjusting to this, my father-in-law returned with a stack of documents, which he spread out on the table. To my shock, they were about me. He matter-of-factly stated, "I had a background check done on you." His words left me feeling uneasy, as if I had done something wrong. As he reviewed the documents, he let out a heavy sigh. "Raised by a single parent and only a high school graduate," he said. "It wasn't news to me. I'd already shared this with Sam. I hoped he wouldn't let it affect our marriage plans, but my father-in-law's next words were disheartening. You barely passed." Barely? Was he judging me for coming from a single-parent home or for not having a college degree? I felt a pang of confusion, but then Sam turned to me and said, "Good job, Melissa. You passed." Relieved, I exhaled quietly. Sam then explained, "When you're a cop, you have to run a background check on whoever you're marrying." This was news to me. It's important to ensure there are no criminal connections or leaks of investigative information. While Sam's reasoning made sense, I wished he had informed me about the background check sooner. I didn't appreciate him presenting the results with that offhand comment about me barely passing. At least I passed, though. With that settled, I was ready to wrap up the visit. Sam offered to drive me home, and I asked him to drop me off at my mom's place since she'd be back from work by the evening. I planned to visit her and chat about the day, especially since I had mentioned Sam's parents' house. As we drove, I said I was surprised by the background check. "Maybe I should do one on you, Sam, just for fun." He laughed and replied, "Go ahead. You won't find anything." We continued chatting as we approached my parents' house. I sent my mom a message to let her know we'd be arriving soon. She warmly greeted us at the entrance of her apartment. Sam said a quick hello before driving off to find parking, as there was none available nearby. I went inside and recounted the events of the day to my mom. She was taken aback by the background check, but acknowledged that being a cop must come with its challenges. However, she wasn't fond of their methods. Then she asked, "That guy, he drives a fancy car and seems well off. Do cops really make that much money? He doesn't have any debt, does he?" I wasn't entirely sure about Sam's salary, but he seems to be among the higher ranks in the police force, so I assumed it was decent. My mom's concern about debt stemmed from her experience with my father, whose financial troubles contributed to their divorce. When I shared this with her, she simply said, "Ah, I see." A month later, I met my mom at the nearest station so we could head to a restaurant that Sam's family frequents for our families to meet. After a short bus ride, we arrived at a rather upscale restaurant. Sam and his parents were already there. Upon our arrival, my future father-in-law greeted us with a pointed comment. "Oh, we've been waiting. This must be your first time at a place like this, huh? It must have been tough getting here without a car." His tone was unmistakably condescending. I had something important to discuss, but as I tried to figure out the best way to address it, my future father-in-law started bragging once again. After enduring this for about 10 minutes, I mustered my courage and spoke up. "Excuse me," I said. My future father-in-law's expression immediately soured. "What is it? It's rude to interrupt when someone is speaking. Don't you have any manners?" I wanted to counter that he was the one lacking manners by droning on about uninteresting topics, but I swallowed my words and took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, but I need to reconsider this marriage." Sam looked taken aback and turned to me, clearly surprised. "I thought we were going to get married. Are you having second thoughts?" "Melissa, what do you mean?" Sam asked, visibly flustered. He glanced nervously between me and his father. "Is this about the background check my dad did?" I shook my head. "The background check itself isn't the issue." "Then it must be my dad's attitude." "I agree it's inappropriate. It's rude to talk about a background check like this, and I understand it must have been exhausting to listen to his bragging," Sam said, and I couldn't help but chuckle. "You get it, but why didn't you stand up for me before?" Sam seemed at a loss for words, while his father glared at him in silence. That's part of it, but not the main issue. Sam, you lied to me." "Lied? About dating 2 girls at once?" Sam, who had been flustered, froze for a moment. "But that's over now. I'm only focused on you, Melissa. Please believe me." Hearing this, I was momentarily stunned. Dating 2 girls at once. From what Sam was saying, he had been seeing 2 women, had one of them end the relationship, and then decided to propose to me. The realization that I had been unknowingly 2-timed was jarring. My father-in-law's glare remained fixed on Sam, while my mother-in-law looked on in shock. I couldn't even bring myself to face my own mother, who I was sure was fuming with anger. I reached into my bag and pulled out a document, handing it to Sam. Sam, looking bewildered, glanced at the document and asked, is this why we can't get married?" As I began to leave the restaurant with my mother, my father-in-law erupted in anger. "Wait a minute. What's going on? Are you mocking my son? We could sue you for canceling the engagement, but you wouldn't be able to pay for any damages. We agreed to this marriage despite your background because Sam cares for you. What's your problem? This is incredibly rude. Is this how you were raised?" His words ignited my anger, and I was about to respond when my mother intervened. "Excuse me, but this isn't a unilateral cancellation of the engagement. I would appreciate it if you stopped ridiculing my daughter." My mother's clear and assertive response took my father-in-law by surprise. Meanwhile, Sam opened the document I had given him, and my mother-in-law peered over his shoulder, her face draining of color. My father-in-law continued to shout, "What's this document? If you're marrying into our distinguished family, you should be able to handle a bit of 2-timing. If you have an issue, speak up." I had just discovered the 2-timing issue, but that wasn't the reason for my decision. Was he not listening? I had no intention of becoming part of a family that prides itself on such behavior. The other restaurant patrons had been staring for a while, and the embarrassment made me eager to leave, though I realized I needed to explain myself first. I spoke calmly but firmly. I thought it would be inappropriate to discuss this in front of everyone, so I was just going to hand over the document. Clearly, that's not sufficient. Backing me up, my mother added, "We've done some research and discovered something we simply can't ignore." Taking a deep breath, I began. "The lie I referred to is about debt. Sam told me he had no debt, but it turns out he has been in debt multiple times. Whenever he faced financial trouble, he sought help from your father-in-law. He was also in debt during our relationship, which makes me reconsider the marriage." I hoped this revelation would finally prompt my father-in-law to quiet down and let us leave, but he turned it into a matter of pride, shouting, "Be quiet. If you're going to marry, you need to tolerate at least that much." "So I'm not getting married," I said with a sigh. Then, unexpectedly, my mother-in-law spoke up for the first time. "That's enough. I told you not to cover Sam's debts because I wanted him to break the habit. But you did it anyway, didn't you? And it's embarrassing to call ourselves a distinguished family with these issues. Melissa, your mother, and I sincerely apologize for the rudeness of my husband and son. I will contact you again at a later date." With that, my future mother-in-law, and I left the restaurant. On the way home, I asked my mother, "Mom, why did you suggest we investigate?" My mother chuckled and replied, "Maybe it's a woman's intuition." When I first saw Sam, after he drove me home, I had a nagging feeling. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I didn't want you to go through anything unpleasant, so I arranged the investigation. I hoped there'd be nothing to worry about. Turns out, her intuition was spot on. The background check results arrived the night before, and I had read them at the nearest station while waiting to meet my mom. I hadn't had time to cancel our dinner plans, so I had to go through with it. I wasn't ready to say I hated Sam just yet, but my father-in-law was another matter entirely. I was so determined not to marry Sam that I was willing to endure his father's presence. When I got home, Sam called, saying I planned to pay it back. It's not a big deal, right? Even if he intended to repay the money, I couldn't marry someone who casually takes on debt. On top of that, he had lied about being debt-free and had been seeing other women. That's when it became clear. I didn't want to marry this man at all. With that realization, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. So let's break up. Goodbye, I said, and hung up the phone. The next day, I received a call from an unknown number. It was my mother-in-law apologizing to me and my mom. Then she dropped a surprising revelation. She was getting a divorce. She also offered to introduce me to a lawyer if I wanted to claim damages for the broken engagement. Given Sam's lies and infidelity, I decided to pursue the claim. After some negotiations, my mother-in-law, who had evidence of her husband's unfaithfulness, managed to secure a substantial alimony settlement and ended her marriage. I also received a fair compensation from Sam for the broken engagement. News of Sam's behavior spread quickly, and one by one, his friends distanced themselves from him. According to my mother-in-law, the rumors about his infidelity were making it difficult for his arrogant father to show his face, and Sam's position at work was also at risk. Thanks to my mom's intuition and support, I was spared from marrying such a man. I'm incredibly grateful to her. We're even planning a vacation, just the two of us, sometime soon.
Oh, you're late, Emily. I'm starving. Get dinner ready, will you? The living room looked like it had been torn apart. My mother-in-law lounged on the couch with an air of entitlement, pushing me to my breaking point. That's it. I can't take this anymore. My name is Emily. I met my husband, Samuel, through work, and we got married. We're both dedicated to our careers and discussed how to balance work and family life before tying the knot. We decided not to have children, so we could focus on our careers and eventually become independent. We share the housework and support each other. And even though our jobs keep us busy, we get along well. We spend our weekends discussing work or relaxing together. However, there's one yearly event that I dread, vacationing with my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Samuel and I both value family, and since he respects mine, I try to do the same for his. I don't mind the trips per se, but my mother-in-law's attitude is unbearable. During the family meeting, Samuel shared that we wouldn't be having kids and would continue focusing on our careers. My father-in-law took it in stride, but my mother-in-law erupted. How could you marry someone who doesn't want children? I've been looking forward to grandchildren. Women should quit their jobs after marriage. They can't achieve anything meaningful in the workplace. My father-in-law retorted, and maybe you never achieved much, but Emily has a promising career. The argument escalated quickly, and Samuel had to intervene to calm things down. Since that disastrous meeting, my relationship with my mother-in-law has been strained. The day of our trip arrived, and I was feeling disheartened as I headed to the meeting spot to meet my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Samuel turned to me and said, "Eve, you really don't want to do this." "It's okay," I reassured him. "No worries, let's go." Our trip involved just an overnight stay. We had separate rooms for my in-laws, so we wouldn't have to spend the night together. A day or two of discomfort wasn't a major issue. When we arrived, my father-in-law greeted us warmly, but my mother-in-law remained persistently irritable. It was challenging to enjoy the trip while avoiding aggravating her. My father-in-law, recently retired but still working part-time, seemed eager to discuss his post-retirement life. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law couldn't resist making sarcastic comments. "Any woman who doesn't want kids is worthless. Poor Samuel, stuck with someone like you. You should quit your job and focus on housework," she muttered. Eventually, my father-in-law had had enough. "What's all this complaining about? We're supposed to enjoy this trip together. If you're upset, it's because you don't understand. She's always working and probably neglects housework. Can't you see how hard this is for Samuel? Tired of the argument between my father-in-law and mother-in-law, we decided to head to the hotel early. But when we arrived and checked our reservation at the front desk, something was amiss. My name was missing from the reservation. The room intended for both of us was now booked as a single room for Samuel. When we inquired, the desk clerk informed us that my reservation had been cancelled a few days earlier. Confused, we told my father-in-law and mother-in-law about the situation. While my father-in-law looked perplexed, my mother-in-law wore a triumphant smile. It's only natural that you don't have a room, Emily. This is a family trip, and you're not part of the family. You should just go home, my mother-in-law said coldly. Wait, did you cancel my reservation? I asked, trying to process her words. Of course, it was me, she replied nonchalantly. Father-in-law, Samuel, and I were all stunned. It was as if she didn't even grasp how outrageous her actions were. I sighed and said, fine, I'll leave if I'm not considered family. Good, don't now, mother-in-law said dismissively. I'm going too, Samuel said, standing up to leave with me. What, even Samuel? Mother-in-law's voice rose in disbelief. Father-in-law then stood up and said, I'm leaving as well, his face showing a mix of confusion and resignation. He apologized to me and handed mother-in-law a few $100s before gathering his belongings. Look, you can stay if you want, but I can't enjoy this trip under these conditions. From now on, no more family vacations for me, I declared. What are you talking about? If you're leaving, at least let Samuel stay, mother-in-law demanded. No way, the way Mom treats Emily is unacceptable. Plus, I'm tired of all the arguments, Samuel said firmly. So, leaving a bewildered mother-in-law behind, the three of us headed home. The flight back was the highlight of the trip. We enjoyed each other's company and had a great time. Mother-in-law, stubborn as ever, stayed at the hotel for one more night, spending every last cent father-in-law had given her. When she returned home, she and father-in-law had a massive argument. Samuel later mentioned that their relationship had been strained for a while, and he worried it would worsen with father-in-law now spending more time at home. His concerns proved accurate. A few days later, as I was enjoying a rare day off, the doorbell rang. There stood my mother-in-law, laden with bags. What's going on? I asked, stunned. I'm done living with my husband. I'm staying here for a while, she declared, ignoring my shock as she walked in and took over the living room. Feeling cornered, I called Samuel at work. Sorry to interrupt, but mother-in-law just showed up here, I said. What? Samuel's shock was evident. He tried calling his father, but there was no answer. I attempted to ask mother-in-law what had happened between her and father-in-law and suggested they should talk, but she ignored me. Meanwhile, she sprawled on our sofa as if she had every right to be there. What a filthy house. It's all because you work, Emily. It's unbearable living under the same roof as you. Samuel needs to divorce you soon, she muttered incessantly. I have resigned myself to enduring her complaints and went about my day as usual. Yet, mother-in-law never stopped badgering me. Samuel came home early that day to try and persuade her to leave, but she refused to budge. We couldn't reach father-in-law and were left with no choice but to tolerate her presence until we could figure something out. The following day, Samuel and I had to go to work, leaving mother-in-law behind. Just quit your job already, she demanded, but I chose to ignore her. When I returned home that evening, it looked like a crime scene. The place was in disarray. Wow, you're late, Emily. I'm starving. Get dinner started, mother-in-law said, lounging on the sofa like a couch potato. What happened here? It looks like a mess. Did you make this? I asked, noticing the drawers were emptied out. No, that's not the point. Why is everything scattered? You didn't prepare lunch, did you? I was looking for something to eat, she replied. I couldn't fathom how her search for food had led to such chaos. I voiced my confusion, but she ignored me. Then I realized my credit card was missing. My heart sank. It seemed likely that she had taken it. As I was debating how to address the issue, Samuel came through the door. Seeing the state of the house, he immediately started arguing with his mother. I pulled Samuel aside and whispered that my credit card was missing. He rubbed his temples and said, "We can't let her get away with this. She needs to face the consequences." "If you think so, I'll handle it," I agreed. We decided to confront mother-in-law about her actions. A few days later, Samuel finally managed to get through to his father, who had been unreachable while traveling with a friend. When he returned home, he found a note from mother-in-law on the table. It read, "I'm still upset about being left behind during the trip. I'm leaving this house." Knowing father-in-law would be coming over soon, Samuel and I adjusted our work schedules to be home. When we arrived, Mother-in-law greeted us with, "Oh, you're home early," but her expression shifted dramatically when she saw her husband walk in. "What? Why are you here? Did you come to get me?" Mother-in-law asked, her surprise evident. "No," father-in-law replied calmly, handing her a set of divorce papers. "I came to give you this." "What?" she gasped, clearly shocked. "Your selfish behavior has only escalated over the years, especially how you've treated Emily. Why can't you accept the woman your son chose?" "I've reached my limit. I want a divorce." "Fine, let's get a divorce. I have Samuel, so I don't need you." "Emily, bring me a pen." "You're so useless," she added derisively. Though irritated, I quickly handed her a pen to expedite the process. After confirming there were no mistakes in the signed divorce papers, I turned to my mother-in-law. "I have something I want to show you." "What could be so important right now?" she snapped. I opened my laptop and showed her a video of her shopping. "I'm going to zoom in," I said, enlarging the image. In her hand was an illustrated credit card. "That credit card isn't yours, is it?" "Well, it's mine," I replied. "You don't have a credit card," mother-in-law argued. I had already confirmed with father-in-law that she hadn't been issued one. You see, mother-in-law had previously acquired a credit card without father-in-law's knowledge. Since then, he hadn't allowed her to have a credit card, I explained. Mother-in-law shot a defiant glare at father-in-law. "I'm the one who got it." Samuel responded coolly. "You didn't get it. This card is a limited edition. Look at the artwork. It was only available during a special collaboration." As Samuel pointed out, the credit card was indeed a limited edition. I had been particularly fond of its artwork and had kept it in a drawer as part of my collection. The card had been stolen by mother-in-law. While we could have suspended the card immediately, Samuel and I decided to let mother-in-law dig her own grave to gather undeniable evidence. "I have timestamps, photos, and transaction history," I said. When we checked the card's transactions and matched them with the times mother-in-law was out shopping. "It looks like you've bought several luxury items too." "It's not true. I didn't steal any credit card," mother-in-law insisted. "Really? Then let's take these photos and the transaction history to the police. We need to find out who misused the card if it wasn't you." "The police?" Mother-in-law's voice trembled with shock. "Of course, someone must have stolen it from us," I said, as she began making increasingly outrageous claims. "The photo is fake. Who would even take such a picture? It must have been fabricated. I am innocent." "I took that photo," I replied calmly. "What?" "As I've mentioned before, I am a journalist. I'm skilled in tailing people and gathering photographic evidence when necessary. With a professional eye, I display photo after photo of mother-in-law purchasing various luxury items. If it wasn't you, the police will sort it out when we present all this evidence. Don't worry, and if the police don't get involved, we'll consult a lawyer. I understand that police might not act on civil matters like credit card misuse, but I've used the threat of police involvement to pressure you. Regardless, consulting a lawyer is a real option. I've been collecting evidence and photos to pursue claims for damages. Even if you're my daughter-in-law, I'm still your mother. What kind of awful person takes such pictures of family?" mother-in-law exclaimed. "I remember you saying I wasn't family during the trip," I shot back. Her face turned crimson at my words. Flustered, she shoved father-in-law aside and bolted out of the house, while I helped father-in-law, who had fallen. I saw Samuel sprinting after her. Given Samuel's love for running, he was quick on his feet, and mother-in-law had little chance of escape. He caught up with her almost immediately. I informed mother-in-law that I would be reporting to the lawyer about her injuring father-in-law and her attempt to flee. Although father-in-law wasn't seriously hurt, he did strain his back and needed to go to the hospital. I told mother-in-law we would also be billing her for the medical expenses. Tearfully, she responded, "I don't have that kind of money." "I don't care," Samuel said firmly. "I can't deal with parents like this," and handed her a letter of disownment, finalizing her eviction. As promised, we contacted a lawyer and began the process to sever ties with mother-in-law, including filing claims for damages and medical expenses. Later, we learned that mother-in-law had moved in with her estranged sister and brother-in-law to borrow money. Despite their business lending her the funds, mother-in-law now works tirelessly to repay the debt. Meanwhile, we have been living with father-in-law. It's not a big deal, but we were concerned about leaving him alone with his sore back. Father-in-law has been proactive in helping around the house, which has been a great relief to Samuel and me. His years of work experience have also provided valuable advice for our careers. Of course, if father-in-law's health deteriorates, we are prepared to support him fully. With mother-in-law out of the picture, The three of us are living harmoniously and enjoying the return of peaceful days.
I've been meaning to say this for a while. I don't like anything about you. Since we're now going to be living together as a family, you need to leave this house immediately. Stop interfering in our lives. When I confronted my son's wife, Tabitha, about her neglect of her responsibilities as a mother, she reacted with visible anger. Fuming, she stormed out of the living room, hurling harsh words. I get it, but just so you know, the house is in my name. If it means cutting ties with you, I'd do it right now, Tabitha threatened, clearly prepared to sever our relationship. She seemed blissfully unaware of the gravity of her words, too naive to understand that changing the house's title would lead to her downfall. This happened before my grandson was even born. I'm Emily, a CPA with a strong career focus. My family consists solely of my son. My husband passed away shortly after he was born, a loss that left me devastated. I was utterly devoted to him, and his death plunged me into despair. I even contemplated ending my own life, but my son, Lucas, became my beacon of hope. His presence reminded me of my purpose, and I vowed to protect him. Lucas has always been my rock. It wasn't that he did anything extraordinary for me. Rather, his passionate calls for me as his mother gave me the strength to persevere. Now, as a grown man with a successful career, I couldn't be prouder. At 26, he married Tabitha, his longtime girlfriend. They moved into a new house and soon suggested I should join them. Don't you think it'd be awkward if I lived with you newlyweds? I asked during one of our casual conversations. Tabitha answered with a smile. Actually, I was the one who suggested it. I really wanted you to move in. Emily, you're such a great person. Lucas is lucky to have you. Hey Mom, don't overstep, Lucas added. Tabitha's words genuinely touched me. She's 6 years older than Lucas and has a no-nonsense demeanor that impressed me, but she's also thoughtful and kind. I had no reservations about moving in with them. It seemed like a promising new chapter. Initially, everything went smoothly. However, soon after moving in, Tabitha became pregnant, and we were all thrilled. She decided to quit her part-time job for health reasons and focus on being a homemaker, while my son continued to work hard and I contributed through my job. Finally, our grandson was born, and we all thought, now let's put everything into making this work as a family. But then came unexpected news. My son's company was expanding globally, and he needed to relocate overseas to support a new branch for a few years. The timing couldn't have been worse. My son was heartbroken. I want to stay here. I want to be with my child, he lamented. Despite his protests, he had to leave. So, it was just the three of us left, Tabitha, my grandson, and me. When my colleagues asked if I was uneasy about staying alone with my daughter-in-law, I brushed off their concerns. With Tabitha's kindness and our adorable grandson, I was sure we'd manage, at least. That's what I believed. I had no idea how quickly that sense of relief would turn into regret. Tabitha had been severely ill during her pregnancy and hadn't been able to handle any housework. Thankfully, I was there to take over the chores, but in hindsight, that might have been a mistake. Even after our grandson was born, Tabitha showed no interest in helping around the house. Worse, she spent her days aimlessly and didn't properly care for the baby. I finally had to confront her. Tabitha, you're a mother now. Don't you feel any responsibility? I asked, stopping her as she was about to leave the house. Don't I always look after him while you're not around? Can't I take a break sometimes? She replied, her frustration evident. A break? You're out almost every night. I'm not a maid or a babysitter. I get it, but hearing a baby cry all the time is exhausting. I need some freedom too. I felt a surge of irritation at her dismissive tone, but showing my frustration might only escalate the situation. This was a delicate matter. I couldn't face my son, who had entrusted me with his home. If Tabitha chose to neglect her duties as a mother, something had to change. Taking a deep breath, I calmed myself and tried to sound reasonable. Tabitha, Could you consider going out a bit less often? I have a job too, and I can't be out and about every day. I made my request as gently as I could, hoping for compromise, but she just laughed at me. Don't act like your job is so exhausting. I'm the one who's tired from taking care of the baby. You're living here because of me, so show some appreciation. It became clear that she didn't really understand what my job as a CPA entailed. Despite having explained it when she first joined the family, she probably saw it as just another office job, not realizing the demands it involved. This conversation made it obvious she believed anyone could do my job without much effort. You should be thanking Lucas for even allowing you to live here. Please, do your part and pull your weight a little, Tabitha said. I raised an eyebrow at her comment, as if she were the one financing our lives. The reality was that my son's income went directly into savings for our grandson, while I took care of all household expenses, mortgage, bills, and so on. Despite my son's offer to cover my living expenses before he left, I had insisted on managing everything myself, wanting him to save his money for his child's future. I had asked him to keep this arrangement secret from Tabitha, so she likely viewed me as a burden rather than a contributor. As time went on, Tabitha's attitude became increasingly arrogant. By the time my grandson turned 3, I was in my 50s and starting to feel the strain of this lifestyle. I worried that if things continued like this, I might reach my breaking point. Just as I was grappling with what to do, my son mentioned that his overseas assignment might be ending soon. I'll be seeing you soon, so hang in there. Dad's doing his best, he reassured us. He kept in touch with his son daily via video calls. My grandson's development was slow, and he struggled with speech, but his affection was evident in his attempts to say Papa and his endearing gestures. Both my son and I were completely smitten with him. Meanwhile, Tabitha seemed disengaged, often absorbed in her phone. Talking about the issues with my son overseas was difficult, leaving me anxious each day. Then, one evening, I returned home late, too exhausted to prepare dinner. I thought, surely, Tabitha will handle it just this once. As I parked my car, I could hear my grandson crying from outside the house. I rushed inside to find the laundry left undone. My grandson, still in just his diaper, was scratching his bottom and crying for a change. Where was Tabitha? I glanced around and spotted her sprawled lazily on the living room sofa, sound asleep. It was unbelievable that she could sleep through our grandson's distress. In stark contrast to his wailing, Tabitha snored peacefully, clearly deep in sleep. Overwhelmed by stress and exhaustion from work, I shook her awake. Wake up! What are you doing? Stop yelling at me. You're too close, she snapped as I pulled the blanket off her. Tabitha groaned, clicked her tongue, and stretched lazily, her lackadaisical attitude fueling my frustration even more. How could you sleep while the baby is crying? I'm tired too, okay? Don't start yelling right after I wake up. I can hear you, she retorted, clearly irritated. Tired? From what? You don't do anything around the house. I'm the one taking care of the baby. You don't understand anything, so why are you acting like you're so perfect? Tabitha shot back, her words only intensifying my anger. I was about to respond, but my grandson tugged at my pants, clearly uncomfortable with his diaper. Shaking off my irritation, I decided to focus on my grandson. Sorry, buddy, that must have felt itchy. I'll change you right away. My tone softened as I changed his diaper, in stark contrast to how I had spoken to Tabitha. Despite the change, my grandson continued to cry. It dawned on me that he might be hungry too. Could it be you haven't eaten? I asked, though I wasn't sure he understood. His frustration seemed to grow as his tears continued. In a desperate attempt to communicate, he rubbed his little tummy in circles, signaling his hunger. Anger simmered within me, but I held it in as I quickly prepared some food. Once he was eating, he laughed innocently while watching TV, and I finally felt a sense of relief. I slumped onto the table, feeling the weight of the day's exhaustion. Why was I enduring all this? It was all because Tabitha refused to handle her responsibilities. My forgotten anger flared up again when I heard Tabitha's voice from upstairs. "Is this for dinner? There's no meat?" She grimaced at the fish-centered meal and began complaining. Something inside me snapped, and I told her to sit down. "We need to talk." "Sit." "Is this going to take long?" I was about to leave. She replied. "Sit down now." My voice was sharp, a rare display of my frustration, causing Tabitha to flinch slightly. Fortunately, my grandson was absorbed in his TV show and didn't notice. Tabitha reluctantly took a seat, still grumbling, and I began to confront her about everything that had been bothering me. "I'm not going to tell you to stop going out or stay home all the time, but you've been remarkably indifferent toward your child," I said. "Indifferent? That's a bit extreme. I'm not ignoring him. I was just tired and took a nap today," Tabitha replied, her tone defensive. "Tired from being out at night? Naturally, you'd be exhausted during the day. Why am I being lectured for taking a short nap? It's already 9 p.m. Sleeping right now is not an option," she snapped back. "Well, what's done is done, and there's no changing it now." At first, Tabitha had been listening quietly, but her patience was clearly wearing thin. Her tone grew sharp, and she began to glare at me. "Do you even feel like a mother? He is your son, after all." "Enough. Stop nagging," Tabitha shot back, clearly fed up. She stood up abruptly, gathered my belongings, and shoved them into my arms. "I've wanted to say this for a while. I can't stand you. From now on, we're living as a family without you. Get out of this house and stop interfering in our lives." With that, she slammed the living room door and stormed out. The noise startled my grandson, who looked anxious and mumbled, "Mama." Seeing him so vulnerable without his mother, he came over to me, looking up as if to ask where she had gone. My heart ached, and I hugged him, breaking down in tears. How did things end up like this, even without Lucas? I thought I could hold this household together. Now I was supposed to leave my grandson in the care of someone so unreliable? Overwhelmed by regret and heartache, I let the tears flow, struggling with my anger and pain. Sensing my distress, my grandson looked up with concern and gently wiped my tears. "When it's okay," he said in his childlike language, patting my head. His small gesture provided some comfort, but my tears wouldn't stop. What mattered most was his happiness. I couldn't leave him with someone so unreliable. I had to protect him. Resolved, I decided to take action. The next day, I called into work and took a day off to have another conversation with Tabitha. "What now? If this is about yesterday, I've had enough. Just leave," she said with clear reluctance. As soon as I arrived, she let out a heavy sigh, took her seat, and immediately launched into provocative remarks. "All right, as you wish. I'll leave," I said calmly. "So, you finally realize you're the problem, huh?" Tabitha's surprise was evident when I accepted her demand without argument. Her widened eyes quickly shifted to a mocking glare. "But just so you know, I need to transfer the house's deed to you first," I added. "Fine by me, if that's what it takes to get rid of you. Let's do it now," she agreed eagerly. I had used the deed transfer as a condition for moving out, and Tabitha, oblivious as always, readily accepted. Her naivety amused me. She had no idea that this change in ownership would mark the beginning of her troubles. We went through the process together, transferring everything, government paperwork, insurance, home loan, into her name. Just as we finished the paperwork, my son arrived home. "Lucas?" Tabitha's shock was palpable. I had told her he wouldn't be back for a while. "It's been a long time, Tabitha," Lucas said. "Why is Lucas here? What about the overseas office?" Tabitha asked, bewildered. "Didn't I tell you? I was coming home soon," Lucas replied. I had confided in him the night before, revealing everything that had been happening. Although he wasn't expected back for a bit longer, I was desperate. I chose to be honest about the situation. Thankfully, his boss at his new posting turned out to be exceptionally supportive. Upon learning about our circumstances, The boss arranged everything for Lucas's return, from flights to logistics. While I bought time with the name changes, my son returned, and we had a chance to confront the situation before I left the house completely. Tabitha, you've done some terrible things to my mother and to our family, Lucas said, his anger palpable. Tabitha could see it in his face. He was furious. Her body visibly shook, and it was clear she was scared. Terrible things? I haven't done anything to your mother, Tabitha protested. Don't play dumb. I know everything. Even then, Tabitha tried to deflect, her attempts at resistance as futile as they were transparent. Lucas, standing tall with his arms crossed, exuded authority. At 6 feet tall, his imposing presence and the scowl on his face conveyed his disdain forcefully. Look, you've got it all wrong, mother-in-law. You've never contributed financially but have always complained. I've been stressed out managing the kids and said things in the heat of the moment. I didn't mean them. Tabitha, physically intimidated, continued to try and shift the blame. My son's presence clearly unsettled her, and I was almost inclined to tell her to stop digging her own grave. Her attempts to justify her actions only made her situation worse, leaving me astounded. Do you even realize how we've been making ends meet? You clearly have no idea. Upon hearing Tabitha's version of events, Lucas couldn't help but laugh. His amusement at her ignorance was evident as he chuckled while looking down at her. Tabitha, confused and unable to understand why she was being laughed at, alternated her gaze between Lucas and me, trying to piece together what was happening. Our living expenses come from my mom's income, Lucas explained. What do you mean? Tabitha asked, bewildered. I've been putting all my earnings into my mom's hands to save for our child's future, Lucas clarified. As the truth unfolded, Tabitha was visibly shaken. The realization hit her hard. She had been completely unaware that her lifestyle was financially supported by me. Her face betrayed her shock and regret, revealing her realization of the grave mistake she had made. Why do you think I had everything transferred to your name today? Lucas asked sharply. What? Tabitha looked bewildered by his sudden question, and he pressed on. You thought you'd successfully pushed Mom out of the house, didn't you? Caught off guard, Tabitha struggled to respond, amused by her silence. Lucas approached her with a cold, sinister grin. The person who kept this family together wouldn't just leave because of your petty annoyances. But why? It was my idea. As Tabitha tried to interject, Lucas cut her off. What did you say? Why would you even say such a thing? She stammered. Because if we didn't include the house title transfer and the conditions for her departure, you might not have gone along with it. Why did the title need to change? We could just live as a family of 3 after driving her out. Tabitha's continued belief that Lucas was on her side stunned both of us. Lucas couldn't help but laugh at her naivety. Let's keep the jokes to your face. The idea of living together with you, me, and her is absurd. But why? Why does the house title also have to be mine? To divorce you, obviously. With that, Lucas thrust the divorce papers into her hands. Startled, she nearly fell backward but managed to steady herself. Her face turned pale as she stared at the documents, her mind clearly going blank. There's no way I could leave my child and my mother in your care. Continuing as a married couple is out of the question. But this is completely unreasonable, Tabitha protested. Unreasonable? You're the one using that word. Reflect on what you've done to my mother. Lucas's anger erupted. His voice thundered with all the fury he had been holding back. You were a mistake. I should have never trusted you with my mom and our child. From now on, I'll be the one to protect them. We're done as of today. But my savings belong to me. Tabitha shifted her focus to the money, demanding my son's assets in the divorce settlement. I was astounded by her audacity. Determined to set the record straight, I decided to explain why I had been covering their living expenses all along. Why do you think I've been covering the living expenses while Lucas saved his money? I asked. What? Tabitha looked confused. All the accounts in my grandson's name were set up by me. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Tabitha's confusion was evident. In a divorce, child savings can sometimes be considered marital assets. To avoid that, I used Lucas's money for living expenses and saved it separately as a gift for my grandson. This way, even in a divorce, you wouldn't have access to my grandson's savings or Lucas's money. So, you're really not going to get much, are you? That wasn't my plan from the start, but it certainly worked out well. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Tabitha had fallen right into our trap, and she sank to the floor, realizing the magnitude of her situation. I bet you only married me for my money, didn't you? Lucas added fuel to the fire. That's not true. Oh, really? I know all about your affairs. Your flings have confessed everything. You're lying. Tabitha looked stunned, and I sighed. How could we not suspect you when you were out every night? We have all the evidence. Your affair partners even confessed. I showed her the voice recorder and photos of her entering a hotel. Her face fell as she realized she was caught. She had reconnected with an old flame after marrying Lucas and had been funneling money to him. But you miscalculated. My salary is far less than Mom's. You mean your mom, the office worker? How could she possibly earn more than you? Lucas, a CPA's salary grows with experience. So what? She makes like $100,000? Yes. Tabitha was stunned by the figure. Don't regret your ignorance now. My mom is not someone to look down on. But if I just work harder, I could. Stop. I cut her off. I can't listen to you any longer. No matter how much you cry or scream, it won't change the facts. Stop making a fool of yourself. Her lower lip quivered as she bit it, tears streaming down her face. Desperately, she begged Lucas for anything but a divorce. Realizing the difficulty of starting over without a job, she pleaded for some sort of lifeline. But Lucas, always family-oriented, wasn't going to let her off the hook. You're going to pay for this, he said, and he meant it. He filed for divorce mediation, claiming emotional damages for the suffering I endured and for neglect of our grandson. As a result, she ended up buried in debt with a remaining home loan and was forced to declare bankruptcy. I'm not sure what became of her afterward, but I've heard rumors that she's barely scraping by. Now, at 76, I'm living with my son and grandson. This spring, my grandson is getting married. He told me, with a shy smile, I'm marrying a woman who's strong and kind, just like you, Grandma. Seeing my grown-up grandson and imagining his future, tears of joy flowed down my cheeks as I wished for their continued happiness.
Is the baby you're carrying really mine? What are you saying? Of course it's yours. What kind of question is that? Do you have any proof it's mine? Proof? What do you even mean by that? Why would you ask something like this? Nothing in particular. Oh, by the way, your beloved Dominic should be arriving any minute now. Beloved? What are you talking about? My name is Carrie, and I'm 31 years old. I married Alec 3 years ago, and now I'm in the final stretch of my pregnancy, just days away from giving birth. Lately, Alec's strange comments have left me uneasy, filling my mind with doubts. Today, Alec's cousin Dominic and my friend Jasmine came to visit us. When Alec and I got married, we discovered by chance that Dominic and Jasmine worked together at the same company. From then on, the four of us often went out together. Dominic and Jasmine are both single, and they seemed like good friends. I always thought they would make a perfect couple, though Jasmine seemed uninterested, seeing Dominic only as a colleague. While I was slicing the fruit Jasmine had brought, Dominic approached me. Carrie, are you okay? Don't overdo it, he said, his voice filled with concern. Immediately, Alex shot back, Hey, Dominic, it's not cool to be so familiar with another man's wife. Are you into Carrie or something? Dominic and I were both taken aback by Alex's words. Dominic was just being thoughtful. Don't say things like that, I replied, trying to diffuse the tension. But Alex's face darkened as he glared at me. So, you're always on Dominic's side, huh? He muttered bitterly before storming off to the bedroom. Dominic and Jasmine, clearly uncomfortable, made their excuses and left early. Alex's behavior wasn't just out of the blue today, he'd been acting strange ever since I became pregnant. He used to be really close to Dominic, almost like brothers, but lately, he'd started making hurtful remarks. Plus, Alec's been swamped with work, constantly working late and spending weekends away for nearly a year now. With the baby coming, I had hoped we could share the parenting responsibilities, but his distance worried me. Then one day, I went into labor. I was alone at my in-laws' house when it started. My in-laws asked Dominic, who lived next door, to take me to the hospital. Dominic drove me there, and a few hours later, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Back in my room, my parents came to see me. I asked them, "Where's Alec?" They told me he hadn't arrived yet. It had been hours since I went into labor, and I was confused. Apparently, he was tied up in an important meeting he couldn't miss. Once I had settled down, my in-laws and Dominic came to see the baby. As Dominic and the others were about to leave, Alec finally walked in. His expression was sour, and without even a smile, he looked at our son and bluntly remarked, "He looks just like Dominic." It was true that our son did bear a resemblance to Dominic. Since Alec and Dominic are first cousins and share similar features, it wasn't surprising that our son might look like him. When Alec made his comment, my in-laws assumed he was joking and chimed in, "He does look like Dominic. You two really do have similar features." The conversation continued lightheartedly, and I also thought Alec was just teasing, but there was no humor in his eyes. As I tried to make sense of Alec's strange behavior, Jasmine entered the room. "Sorry I'm late. I was so surprised when Dominic called," Jasmine said, clearly having rushed over for my sake. The room grew more lively with her arrival, but Alec, sounding irritated, suddenly announced, "Fine, I'm leaving. Why don't you enjoy your time with Dominic?" Then, without another word, he stormed out, leaving everyone in stunned silence. None of us could understand why Alec was so upset. Feeling emotionally fragile after giving birth, I couldn't hold back my tears. The room quickly became chaotic, my in-laws were flustered, and Jasmine and Dominic tried desperately to comfort me. "What's gotten into Alec, leaving like that on such an important day?" Jasmine asked, clearly bewildered. Dominic added, "Don't worry, Carrie, I'll talk to him later, just focus on resting right now." My parents and in-laws were also concerned, though they stayed by my side, apologizing for Alec's behavior, but no one could make sense of his harsh words. During my 5-day hospital stay, Alec never visited or contacted me, and no one knew where he was. Dominic and my in-laws tried to reach him, but his phone remained unreachable. I started to worry that something serious might have happened to him. When the baby and I were discharged from the hospital, we returned home without having heard a word from Alec. My parents and in-laws took turns helping me care for the baby, which allowed me to manage without Alec, but the anxiety of suddenly losing my husband weighed heavily on me. Just as we were all growing increasingly worried, Alec finally came home. It was 1 week after I had been discharged from the hospital. My in-laws were helping out, and it was just me, my son, and them at home when Alec suddenly burst through the door, his loud entrance startling me as our son slept. You've been cheating on me with Dominic," he shouted. I was stunned by his sudden return and the outrageous accusation. "What are you talking about? I haven't cheated on you," I responded, trying to stay calm. But Alec, looking all too certain, fired back, "I had a DNA test done. This isn't my child. We're getting a divorce." I was taken aback. Alec had secretly done a DNA test? The results couldn't be right because the baby was definitely his. I was at a loss, unable to comprehend how such results could be possible, let alone why Alec would even think of doing a DNA test. Finally, one of my in-laws broke the silence. "There must be some mistake. Why did you even feel the need to do a DNA test?" Alec shot me a piercing glare. "I've been suspicious of you and Dominic for a while now, and the baby looks just like him." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had never been close to Dominic, and we'd never spent time together alone. "You're misunderstanding things. If our son resembles Dominic, he also looks like your father." I tried to reason with him. But Alec wouldn't hear it. He was convinced I'd been unfaithful, adamant that Dominic and I were having an affair. Seeing this wasn't going anywhere, my in-laws, who had been quietly listening, stepped in. "If you're so confident, then show us the DNA test results." Suddenly, Alec hesitated, his bravado fading. He was reluctant to hand over the envelope, which only fueled my in-laws' frustration and anger. They finally wrested the envelope from Alec's grip, and as they examined the document inside, their expressions darkened with fury. "This is absurd. Did you really think this would fool anyone?" they scolded Alec sharply. I glanced at the document, and even with no expertise, it was clear that it was a forgery. It looked like Alec had concocted this so-called DNA test himself, a poorly executed imitation likely pieced together from an online sample. I was speechless, unable to fathom why Alec would go to such lengths. Meanwhile, my in-laws were pressing him hard. What were you thinking? Trying to accuse Carrie of cheating? I didn't raise my son to run away from his responsibilities right after his wife gives birth. Alec's father lectured sternly. Alec stared at the floor, muttering under his breath. Then, in a moment of frustration, he lashed out. Damn it, I thought I could keep this under wraps. Fine, I'll back off for now, but don't think this clears you of having an affair with Dominic. We're getting divorced because of your infidelity. With that, he stormed out of the room, ignoring our attempts to stop him. I was too stunned to fully register my in-laws' apologies. After they left, my parents stepped in to care for my son, giving me some time alone to process everything. Once my son was asleep, I sat quietly in the living room, trying to make sense of it all. Why was Alex so convinced that I was having an affair with Dominic? And why would he go so far as to forge a DNA test just to push for a divorce? His actions seemed desperate, as if he were in a rush to end our marriage. Then a thought crossed my mind, could Alec be the one who was cheating? As I reflected, I realized that Alec's strange behavior had started about a year ago, which coincided with the time he began showing animosity toward Dominic. It all started to make sense. Perhaps Alec was trying to accuse me of infidelity to gain the upper hand in the divorce. If Alec was having an affair, it might have been going on for about a year. Everything seemed to line up with this theory. Suspecting there might be some evidence at home, I began searching through Alec's belongings and stumbled upon a crumpled receipt in his closet. It was from a restaurant located about an hour away and clearly indicated 2 meals. While this hint was intriguing, it wasn't enough to prove infidelity on its own. I continued searching the house but found nothing else suspicious. Then, a thought struck me. When we first got married, we had installed an app to share our locations. Assuming Alec might have turned off his location sharing, I checked the app anyway. To my surprise, Alec's location was accurately displayed. It seemed he had forgotten about the app. The map showed him in the same area as the restaurant on the receipt, with his location pinpointed at what appeared to be an apartment. While this wasn't conclusive proof of cheating, he might just be staying at a friend's or colleague's place. I decided to keep an eye on the situation. Over the next week, it became clear that Alec was frequently commuting between his company and the apartment. Knowing his routine, I planned to visit the apartment on Wednesday. I left my son with my parents and, despite still feeling weak from childbirth, I mustered the energy to investigate. It was around 7 o'clock p.m., the time Alec typically came home. I waited at a nearby cafe. After about 20 minutes, Alec arrived at the apartment as expected, but to my shock, he was with someone, Jasmine, walking arm in arm with him. No way, Jasmine, why? I exclaimed. Though I was alone, I drew curious glances from the cafe staff and customers but didn't care. I managed to capture a video of them on my phone. Returning home, I clutched the phone tightly. My mother had already put my son to bed, and I sat alone in the living room, trying to figure out how to confront the situation. Just then, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, I found Dominic and my in-laws standing there. Sorry, I brought them along. I thought if I came alone, Alec might accuse me of something, Dominic explained. My in-laws looked surprised and offered their apologies. Carrie, we're so sorry for our son's behavior. They only knew about the fake DNA test and nothing about Alec's affair. I was still processing everything when Dominic spoke again. Please don't be shocked. It seems Alec and Jasmine are having an affair. I was stunned by Dominic's revelation but quickly responded. Dominic, you knew? I found out about Alec's affair recently too. I even recorded this video today. I showed them the video, and their shock deepened as Dominic nodded, confirming his suspicions. He then shared what he knew. Rumors had been circulating at work for weeks about Jasmine having an affair with a married man. Dominic had confronted Jasmine about these rumors, but she had denied everything, which led him to leave. Later, he accidentally saw Jasmine and Alec together and, unable to confront them at the time, had taken a photo. Dominic then checked their social media profiles and realized that Jasmine and Alec's posts over the past year aligned perfectly, confirming his suspicion of their affair. I was both grateful and astonished at the lengths Dominic had gone to investigate. Dominic, you're like a detective, I remarked. Despite the gravity of the situation, Dominic seemed uneasy about my comment. Based on the evidence we had collected, we planned to confront Alec the following day. I called Alec to arrange a meeting at home, and it was settled that I would be there after work. When I called him, Alec was still shamelessly accusing me of infidelity, saying, "So you're finally admitting to cheating? Just admit it, and we can get a divorce." With Alec on his way over, My in-laws had gathered at the house, along with my parents and Dominic. Alec thought he'd find just me at home and was in for a surprise when he arrived to find everyone there. When Alec showed up, he announced, "I've brought the divorce papers, just sign them quickly," without realizing the confrontation that awaited him. As he opened the living room door, his face fell at the sight of us. Mom? Dad? What's everyone doing here?" he stammered in panic. My father-in-law was the first to speak, his voice stern and angry. "You're a fool, cheating and then fabricating lies about Carrie just to get a divorce? This is unacceptable." Alec was visibly stunned by the outburst. I didn't cheat," he protested, trying to play innocent. I then showed him the video I had recorded of him and Jasmine entering an apartment together, arm in arm. Alec started making excuses. "I was just getting advice from Jasmine." I confronted him further with the location history from the app. "I found out that this apartment is Jasmine's, isn't it?" It turned out that Jasmine had moved without informing me and that she and Alec had been living together part-time. Dominic presented a photo of Jasmine and Alec together, and we confronted Alec with their matching social media posts. With no room left for excuses, Alec broke down and admitted to the affair, almost in tears. It became clear that the affair had started about a year ago, initiated by Jasmine, who had feelings for Alec. To my shock, Jasmine was pregnant and pressuring Alec to remarry her, which explained his rush to divorce me. To avoid paying alimony, Alec had fabricated my affair, planning to frame Dominic as the other party. His rationale was that our son's resemblance to Dominic would make the forged DNA report seem plausible. Alec, still crying and making pitiful excuses, admitted to his deceitful scheme. His poorly executed plan was both infuriating and revolting. Realizing further discussion was pointless, I shoved the divorce papers toward Alec and made him sign. The divorce was finalized, with Alec paying both alimony and child support. I also pursued alimony from Jasmine, who had resigned from her job due to her pregnancy. It was likely that the scandal of her affair with Alec embarrassed her deeply. Jasmine and Alec's relationship soon fell apart. According to friends, Jasmine lost interest in Alec once the affair lost its thrill. Although I was deeply hurt and betrayed by Jasmine, whom I had considered a close friend, I managed to recover with support from other friends. With my parents' help and Dominic's support, I'm committed to raising my son as a single mother and living a life he can be proud of. As my husband prepared to move out, his gaze held a cold finality, as if I had become obsolete. He confronted me with a harshness that felt like a blow, treating me like a mere resource before giving me the ultimatum to leave the house. It felt like a betrayal, and I couldn't help but wonder why I was always the one to suffer. Despite my pain, I resolved to make this part of my plan for retribution. I'm Nancy, 46 years old, and I work as a civil servant at City Hall. After graduating from community college, I've dedicated 25 years to my job. I married Bob when I was 25, following a rushed wedding, and we had a son soon after. Our boy is now in college, living away to attend a local university. Our marriage has deteriorated over the years, especially since our son moved out. The warmth and connection we once had have faded, replaced by a cold distance and Bob's growing dominance. His dissatisfaction with everything I do has become a daily ordeal. He constantly criticizes the meals I prepare, saying they lack flavor and need to be remade. No matter how meticulously I clean and do the laundry, his complaints never cease. He even belittles my education and career, saying things like, "Can't you manage housework with just a community college degree? Why did I marry such a foolish woman?" Bob, who graduated from a prestigious private university and works as a salesperson at a major food trading company, often makes me feel inadequate. I've tried to discuss sharing household responsibilities, reminding him that we both work and that it would be fair to divide the chores. But his response is always the same: "It's the wife's duty to handle housework. You work government hours and have plenty of time. Our child is grown. You should manage on your own." Whenever I pointed out that our child is also grown for him, he would become enraged and suggest I quit my job. Bob's casual suggestion to quit ignores the reality of our financial obligations, living expenses, the mortgage, and our son's college tuition, all of which my salary covers. I've asked him more than once if he could contribute to the mortgage or tuition, but he dismisses my concerns, insisting that he will spend his money as he pleases while contributing only the bare minimum. We've kept separate bank accounts since we married, and I have no access to his finances. It's unsettling how one can become accustomed to this kind of life over 2 decades. Lately, I've been increasingly troubled by Bob's growing demands for money. It started with a seemingly trivial request. During a family gathering at my parents' house, Bob asked me for $100 to contribute to gifts for his nieces and nephews. Although I understood the importance of family obligations, it struck me as odd that he couldn't cover this himself. Reluctantly, I complied, fearing I'd be labeled as cold if I refused. That was just the beginning. The situation quickly escalated. When my dad was hospitalized due to an injury, Bob asked for $400 for a get-well gift. Not long after, he demanded $300 for a wedding gift for a distant relative, someone from either my mother's or father's side. Each request seemed more outrageous than the last, and before I knew it, I was drained of thousands of dollars on top of our regular expenses. My trust in Bob began to erode, and my suspicion of his motives grew. Despite my attempts to deny his requests skillfully, Bob's temper worsened. He would angrily accuse me of being unwilling to support my in-laws whenever we crossed paths. The constant strain left me on the verge of tears. At the same time, I noticed Bob coming home late more frequently. He'd reek of a suspicious perfume, and I even found a woman's earring in his shirt pocket. Infidelity became a looming concern. When I questioned him about his late nights, he dismissed my worries with a scornful tone, belittling my work as a government employee. "You just sit in front of a computer all day. How can that even be considered work?" he would sneer. His dismissive attitude only fueled my frustration and led to more frequent arguments. I struggled to understand why he was acting this way when I was shouldering most of our financial responsibilities. The kind man I once knew seemed to have vanished, and I found myself questioning why I had married him. Then came the fateful day. Bob came home early. An unusual occurrence. "You're home earlier than usual," I remarked. "I have something to discuss," he said with an unsettling calmness. My confusion deepened as he abruptly stated, "Get out of this house." I asked, "Is this about your mistress?" To my dismay, he confirmed my worst fears. Bob revealed that his mistress was the owner of a bar he frequently visited for business. Unlike me, she was supposedly charming, gentle, and beautiful. He described their plans to live together with her child, dismissing any thoughts of reconciliation. I requested one night to think things over, retreating to our room. Bob's final words were cold and unfeeling. "Get out as soon as you can." After treating me like an ATM, Bob now wanted to kick me out of the house. I could only assume that the money he had squeezed out of me had gone to his mistress. The late nights he claimed were for business meetings were likely just excuses for him to meet her. Why was I enduring this? Infuriated by his deceit and laziness, I resolved to take action. The next morning, Bob asked with a snide tone, "Are you ready to move out?" I responded calmly, "I'll leave today." His surprise at my composed demeanor was evident, but he quickly recovered, saying, "Finally, I can escape this dull life. A beautiful woman in the house, even if it's just a place to sleep, is definitely an upgrade." I told him, "I'm taking all my things with me. If we're starting new lives, I need to take what's mine." Bob, with his smug attitude about his new life and mistress, was no longer the man I wanted. I declared, I want a divorce. As a condition for leaving, I refused to be the pathetic wife who accepts infidelity and walks away without a fight. I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared for this moment. Bob, envisioning his future with his mistress and clearly relieved, signed the papers without hesitation, saying, "That's an easy thing." By that afternoon, I had packed my belongings and left the house. A sense of refreshment washed over me. As I departed, I heard Bob's loud exclamation at the doorway. His smug satisfaction was fleeting, I thought. I submitted the signed divorce papers at work, explained the situation to my colleagues, and took a few days off. Since everything had unfolded so quickly, I hadn't secured a new place yet. For now, I decided to stay at my son's place. Seeing me after a long time, my son must have noticed the relief in my demeanor. He smiled and said, "I'm glad you finally ended it. This is just the beginning. By the way, did you handle that thing I asked you to do?" I replied, "Absolutely. I did exactly as you instructed. Thank you," he said. The first act of my revenge had been set into motion. A week later, I received a call from a number I knew all too well. It was Bob, or rather, my ex-husband now. At first, I ignored his calls, but his persistent ringing compelled me to answer. I took a deep breath before picking up the phone. "What's going on?" he demanded harshly from the other end. It was the end of the month, a time when various payments were due. "What are you talking about? We're divorced. Where's my application for payment?" I replied. "What are you saying?" "Yes, it's not surprising," I continued, noting his rising frustration. Neither the living expenses nor the mortgage had been paid from my salary this month, which must have shocked him. Our home, situated in an upscale area, had a mortgage in the thousands. "How am I supposed to cover this amount?" "Your salary was..." Bob's voice trailed off in disbelief. I decided to lay everything out clearly. We've been living apart under the same roof for a while now, so I didn't feel the need to inform you. I've been promoted to director. That's right, director, not just a manager. Since when? Since our son started high school, I believe. My salary is probably double what yours is now. What? Bob seemed stunned by each revelation. Another thing you didn't know, I've been setting aside money for our son's education since he was born. I now have several $100,000 in assets. Thankfully, we kept our finances separate, so you were in the dark about this. Impossible. How could I have known? I continued. I had planned to divorce you sooner, but keeping you as a source of money was more advantageous. I managed to make you agree to the divorce willingly by playing the part of a dependent wife. I even advised our son to attend a local university well before we separated. Everything was part of my strategy. After I finished speaking, Bob was left speechless. How does it feel to be outmaneuvered by your wife, whom you looked down upon for only graduating from community college and working a cushy government job? He clearly hadn't expected me to be so upfront. His silence was a testament to his shock. Isn't it odd that he never questioned how he maintained a middle-class lifestyle and beyond? I said, since we're divorced, I'm no longer obligated to cover any expenses, including this month's payments. And isn't the condo in your name? Shouldn't you be handling the mortgage now? Where are you? Bob demanded. I'll come to you. Just tell me where you are. Bob hesitated before responding. They told me at work that you're on a few days off, but they don't know where you are. How am I supposed to manage now? I couldn't help but smirk. Well, I've gone into hiding with the help of my workplace, our son, and even my parents and relatives. Bob, it seems you're really at your wit's end. Why don't you get a job and earn your own money? Bob snapped. I replied coolly, of course, you won't live as comfortably as before, especially now that you're relying on your dad. I could see the shock in Bob's response. How do you know that? Easy, just hire a private investigator. That should solve the mystery. It turned out that Bob had been squandering most of his salary on gambling and using the money I provided for monthly living expenses to pay off his debts. Are you out of your mind, Bob? You've been giving money to your mistress on top of everything else? One day, I'll remind you of these words. Why did I marry such a fool? I said harshly, leaving Bob breathless and speechless. After a pause, Bob's tone softened. I admit I was wrong. Can't you come back? I realize now how wrong I was. Please tell me your address. I want to apologize in person. He was clearly lying to keep me on the line. Since he hadn't learned his lesson, I decided to reveal a couple more truths. By the way, have you checked your mailbox recently? Why are you asking? I haven't checked it yet. Well, you should have received a bill for alimony by now. You may not realize this, but I never agreed to an amicable divorce. Given that you committed adultery, I have every right to demand alimony. But even now, Bob insisted. I've never said I cheated on you. Anticipating his reaction, I continued. The alimony bill comes with a report of your infidelity and evidence photos. In fact, most of the evidence in that report was gathered by our son, not just by a private investigator. When I visited our son, John showed me a photograph of Bob caught in the act of cheating. Mom, I have this, John said quietly. You didn't divorce because of me, did you? I'm sorry I couldn't do anything sooner. Don't worry about it, John. I'm glad you were able to help. John had spent his spare time collecting evidence despite his busy schedule and the distance from home. I couldn't ignore the hard work he put into gathering this crucial evidence. Knowing Bob, I anticipated he would try to weasel his way out of this, so I had prepared thoroughly. There's one more thing, I said. What more could there be? Have we received any notification from our son's university yet? What kind of notification? About the tuition fee withdrawal. What? Yes, I had instructed our son to switch the account for the tuition fee withdrawal to Bob's name. The tuition for this semester is due soon. Wait a minute, let's discuss this calmly. I am calm. Bob should be relieved our son didn't attend the same prestigious university Bob went to. Our son, against Bob's wishes, worked hard and enrolled in a more affordable local university in Idaho. Even so, the first semester's tuition is still several $1,000s. With the alimony deadline approaching, please ensure the payment is made promptly. Please, just stop making a scene. I have nothing more to do with you. With that, I hung up the phone. Later, I heard through the grapevine that after my financial support ended, Bob had to sell the condo where he was living. He's now in a rundown 500-square-foot apartment. Desperate and with no source of income, Bob repeatedly tried to contact me, hoping to drag me back into his problems. I don't know much about Bob's mistress, but it's clear she wasn't willing to support him. I later learned that she had even left him, after hiring a private investigator to look into her. I was surprised to discover that she didn't have any children. Bob was the only one seriously invested in the relationship. It seems he was completely duped. After using me like an ATM and then kicking me out, I wanted Bob to truly reflect on his actions. Apparently, unable to manage his debts and the alimony he owed me, he turned to his parents for help. However, they couldn't forgive him for the way he treated me and ultimately disowned him. Now, Bob is said to be lost and without support. As for me, I've found freedom and peace. I'm enjoying life with the assets from my investments and the alimony. I've purchased a newly built condo and spend my weekends with our son, who visits regularly. We enjoy tea together and study. Interestingly, he's now aspiring to become a public servant like me. He's diligently preparing for the National Civil Service exam, taking my advice to heart. Watching him pursue his dreams brings me great joy. I've returned to work and shared sweets with my boss and colleagues who supported me through the difficult times. This experience has reinforced my belief that hard work and sincerity always lead to rewards. I plan to keep this lesson in mind as I continue on with my life. Sean and I were about to embark on a glamorous new chapter abroad, courtesy of his $3 million fortune, but the thought of staying together and enduring a divorce seemed unbearable. Curious about our address? Maybe you should start by licking my shoes first. What are you talking about? What's going on? I was bewildered by my mother-in-law's cryptic remarks. There was no indication of her preparing for a life abroad or accumulating wealth. As I was saying, Sean's secured $3 million, and we're set for a luxurious life overseas. Just the two of us. Why would Sean go abroad? And what's with the $3 million? Why are you so interested? Well, if your father's so eager to know, maybe if you beg and lick my shoes, I might share the details. What on earth? Where's Sean? We're living the high life with Sean's $3 million. You're no longer needed. I was stunned by Sissy's casual announcement. How could Sean have suddenly come into such a fortune and decided to live extravagantly abroad, treating me as if I were an outsider? My heart raced with a mix of anger and anxiety, but I needed to stay calm and figure out what was happening. Was that $3 million real? I'm Mariah, a manager at a prominent IT company. I met Sean in the same department, and his vibrant personality drew me to him, leading to our marriage. Initially, Sean's parents welcomed me warmly. Our daughter, Rothy, is now 14. I grew up in poverty with challenging parents, and having faced adversity, I'm dedicated to raising Rothy with love while balancing work and home life. Sean was recently assigned to a project in a remote area and had to go alone. I was concerned about managing everything with Rothy on my own. To ease the burden, I decided to have my mother move in to help with chores and childcare. Little did I know this decision would become my greatest regret. You're working late again? This is why women who neglect their families. Sissy's harsh words pierced me as soon as I walked through the door. I have a job too, and I'm taking care of Rothy. I shot back, but her disapproval stung. In my younger days, family was everything. The idea of working outside was inconceivable. One day, Rothy came home with excellent grades and proudly declared, "It would have been impossible without me. It's all thanks to me." What's your purpose here, anyway? Aren't you just an extra? Sissy retorted sharply. Despite the fact that I had taught Rothy most of her language and math skills and only helped her with home economics, Sissy took every opportunity to criticize my homemaking, particularly my cooking. When I made a minor error in seasoning a dish, Sissy seized the chance to pounce on my cooking skills. How did you and Sean manage before? I'm doing my best, and everyone has their own way of handling household chores, I said, my frustration boiling over. Make sure you're educating her properly. Sissy even started complaining to Sean about me. Mom, Mariah is working too. Try to understand, Sean said, attempting to reason with her, but his efforts felt inadequate to me. Living together, my relationship with Sean steadily deteriorated. With him away, I felt increasingly isolated. One evening, I called Sean for advice. Hello, is now a good time? I asked. Yeah, it's fine. What's up? Sean replied. It's late, and the constant criticism about the housework is really starting to get to me. Sorry, Mom can be a bit harsh, but she might have a point. Don't let it stress you out too much. Just take things at your own pace. Finding some solace in Sean's words, I resolved to carry on. I spent my days missing Sean's presence. As his absence extended due to his solo assignment, I continued to manage daily life with Sissy, whose relentless criticism wore me down. From morning till night, Sissy found fault with everything I did. When I prepared Sean's favorite mixed rice, she disdainfully remarked, "This is awful. Who would even eat this?" And if I took a short break, she would snap, "A woman who can't handle her housework has no right to rest." I had never been confident in my household skills. Sean used to laugh off my mistakes, but in Sissy's eyes, they were unforgivable. I began to think that Sissy's harshness might stem from her overbearing affection for Sean and her difficulty accepting his departure from her life. It was a stark reminder of the kind of overbearing parent I never wanted to become. After a trip to the local market, I came home to find Sissy waiting for me with a disapproving look. Unbelievable. Out shopping while Sean's away? What about the housework? I'd hoped for a break, but her constant criticism made everything feel overwhelming. Later, I was anxiously awaiting a call from Sean. I thought hearing his voice might bring some comfort, but what he said was anything but reassuring. "Things aren't going well with the projects here. I've gotten into gambling and debt." "What? Gambling and debt? How serious is it? What about our life and Rothy's future?" "I'm really sorry. I'll sort it out. Just trust me." "How are you planning to fix this? How much debt are we talking about?" "I'm working on a solution." Sean had always been sincere and reliable, never late for dates, always home right after work, and grateful for my efforts with cooking and laundry. I married him for his honesty and dedication, but during his absence, no matter how hard I tried, Sissy's criticism never let up. "Think someone like you deserves Sean? I can't believe it." Despair overwhelmed me. Sean's confession about gambling and debt, coupled with Sissy's relentless criticism, was more than I could bear. One night, unable to endure any longer, I left the house and found myself on a park bench, crying. At dinner one evening, Sissy confronted me with a shocking revelation. "You used to work at a club, didn't you? A mother like you working there, how disgraceful. How did you find out about that?" I mentioned Sean's useless wife to an acquaintance and showed them your photo. "They recognized you. Apparently, you were a failure even back then." I had to leave home and live alone because of my mother's neglect. Struggling financially, I worked at a club. It was a part of my past that even Sean didn't know about. I was speechless. I never imagined she would uncover my past and use it against me. Her attacks only grew harsher. "I can't accept someone like you as my granddaughter's mother. I'll make sure Sean knows and get you kicked out of the house." My heart sank further into despair. The thought of losing everything, my marriage to Sean, all my efforts, our future together, felt terrifyingly real with just Sissy's harsh words. Sean's calls became even more infrequent, and I worried that doubts and mistrust were creeping into his heart. One night, alone in my room, I pondered my life, how I met and married Sean, the current situation, and the constant barrage of criticism from Sissy. I felt overwhelmed and on the brink of breaking down. I could no longer endure the strain. Silent and resolute, I left my room and wandered into the night. The dark, empty streets mirrored the depth of my despair. Sissy's words reverberated in my mind, my past, my hidden secrets, and my present, all mercilessly scrutinized by her relentless criticism. I sat alone on a park bench at night, gazing at the sky. The absence of stars mirrored the darkness in my heart. Suddenly, Rothy approached and sat beside me, taking my hand. "Mom, you're here," she said gently. "Don't let Grandma's words get to you. You're working hard in an IT company, and that's a testament to your perseverance." "Thank you, Rothy, but maybe Grandma has a point." "Mom, Grandma is stuck in outdated beliefs. In today's world, no matter what job you've had, you should be proud. I'm proud of you for working at a club." "Really?" "Absolutely. You've always worked hard for our family, no matter the obstacles. Don't let Grandma's words shake you. Your work in IT is impressive. No matter what Grandma says, I'm here for you." Rothy's comforting words warmed my heart, and I felt tears well up. Her support renewed my determination to face the challenges ahead. I took a deep breath and began sifting through the documents in Sean's study, bank statements, credit card bills, loan contracts. The full extent of Sean's financial issues slowly came into focus. Why had it come to this? I kept finding receipts from gambling venues, horse racing, pachinko, casinos. Each one made my heart ache as I realized how much money Sean had squandered. I then turned to Sean's computer, using his birthday reversed as the password. His inbox was flooded with urgent messages from financial institutions, pleas from friends for repayment, and numerous ads from gambling sites. I calculated the total amount Sean had lost to gambling, and the figure, $3 million, was staggering. Panic set in briefly, but I had no time to waste. I needed to make a plan. I started organizing our finances, estimating the value of items we could sell, tallying up my savings, and figuring out how much I could set aside from my salary. I continued investigating to find out which banks Sean had borrowed from and how much he owed. I contacted the banks to obtain credit information in Sean's name, working tirelessly each day. A few days later, I had a plan. I devised a strategy to repay Sean's debts and began preparing for a future independent of him. Leveraging my IT skills, I decided to take on freelance projects. I created a portfolio and registered on a freelance job website. It wasn't long before I received my first client request, which would help with our living expenses. In between work, I meticulously reviewed our household budget. I canceled unnecessary subscriptions, eliminated wasteful spending, and sought out budget-friendly recipes, successfully cutting our daily food expenses. Following advice from local mom friends, I set up a stall at a community flea market, selling branded items and unused appliances. The extra income was a welcome boost. Weeks later, my freelance work was thriving, and my income had stabilized. My bank account now had enough to cover our living expenses. When I arrived home one day, I discovered that Sissy's belongings were gone. At that moment, my phone rang. "Are you home? Did you see our stuff? What do you want?" "Sean and I are starting a glamorous life abroad with his $3 million. We can't live here if we divorce. Want to know our address? Lick my shoes first." I couldn't help but chuckle. Actually, that $3 million is debt. Stop joking. Sean couldn't possibly have that much debt. It's hard to believe, but it's true. In Sean's study drawer, there are transaction records, bank contracts, credit card bills, and his computer is filled with urgent emails and messages about gambling. If you don't believe me, check for yourself. That's a lie. It's all due to Sean's gambling, horse racing, pachinko, casinos. I just sent you photos on WhatsApp as proof. Take a look. I was taken aback. He probably didn't want you to know, but it's the truth. I was trying to figure out how to handle this massive debt, but I guess it's not my problem anymore, is it? I was silent for a moment, then sighed. I had no idea. I don't know what to say. I ended the call, feeling stunned by Sean and Sissy's actions. With no other choice, I resolved to move forward for Rothy and myself. Later, Sean called. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard, almost defeated, but his remorse didn't ease my anger. "How did things get this bad? Because of you. Our family is falling apart. I didn't foresee this outcome, but when I decided to go abroad with Sissy, I couldn't envision a future with you and Rothy." I was stunned by his words. "You couldn't see a future? Your carelessness and lack of planning have destroyed our family." "I know, but it's too late now. I've made a promise with Sissy, a promise that's cost Rothy's future, for our own paradise." Sean fell silent for a while. "Did you really love our family?" "I did, but now," his voice trailed off, and I could hear him crying. "Don't cause us any more pain. Rothy and I will be moving on with our lives. I'll forget about you." Sean's only response was his quiet crying on the other end of the line. With a heavy heart, I gently hung up. The confusion began when a $3 million bill arrived at our home. Sissy mistakenly believed it was a lottery win. Fueled by this misunderstanding, she and Sean dreamed of moving abroad, not realizing that the bill was a debt. Sean, unaware of Sissy's error, saw the move as a chance to escape his financial troubles and accepted the proposal, thinking it was a lucky break. I decided to find a lawyer and prepare for a divorce. My anger toward Sean fueled my resolve to seek compensation and child support. This marked the beginning of a new chapter for Rothy and me. Independent of Sean, I consulted with a lawyer to navigate the divorce settlement and secure child support. During this time, Rothy and I grew closer, and she became a pillar of support. Her understanding and solidarity helped me find strength, making the hardships with Sean and Sissy feel somewhat worthwhile. Meanwhile, Sean and Sissy faced relentless difficulties abroad. Poor preparation and financial mismanagement led to their downfall. After being robbed and struggling with the language barrier, they were eventually deported as illegal immigrants. I had a conversation with Sean through the lawyer. "The divorce is finalized. You'll be paying the compensation and child support in a lump sum, correct?" "Thank you. Now I can finally start over." "But in one lump sum? Maybe in installments if that's more feasible for you." "You should have agreed to installments from the beginning if you couldn't handle a lump sum. I insist on the full amount up front." Sean later fell deeper into debt, borrowing from dubious sources, almost as if it were an urban legend. His whereabouts became uncertain, but that was no longer my concern. Sissy, having lost her savings and rental, was forced into homelessness. Back in the United States, Rothy and I embarked on our new life, though it wasn't easy. Being free from Sean allowed us to face the future with optimism. I'm determined to build a happy life with Rothy, who helped me through my darkest times, as we work together towards a brighter future. Hey, I'm Sarah. Before I get into the heart of my story, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more about how one night changed everything for me in ways I never expected. Thanks for tuning in. The evening was supposed to be a celebration. Mrs. Whitmore had opened her grand home for a family dinner, and the setting was nothing short of elegant. Crystal chandeliers lit up the room, casting a soft glow over the gleaming china. It felt perfect. I was excited to announce my promotion, a milestone I had worked hard for in my marketing career. I remember adjusting my dress, taking a deep breath, and mentally preparing for the moment. I expected smiles, congratulations, and maybe even a toast. As the appetizers were served, I leaned toward Tom, my husband, and whispered, "I have some great news." He nodded, giving me the encouragement I needed. Smiling, I turned to the family and said, "I've been promoted to Senior Marketing Director." But instead of the applause I anticipated, the room fell into a heavy silence. Mrs. Whitmore's expression tightened, her eyes narrowing, lips pressed into a thin line. Leaning toward Tom, but loud enough for me to hear, she muttered, "Is this what we raised him for? To be overshadowed by his wife's career?" Tom, usually my biggest supporter, suddenly seemed to shrink under his mother's glare. The smile faded from his face, and I felt his hand pull away from mine beneath the table, trying to salvage the moment. I added, "It's an amazing opportunity for us, Tom. The raise is substantial." But Mrs. Whitmore didn't let it go. Her voice, sharp and disapproving, cut through the air. "What about starting a family, Sarah? Do you think a paycheck can replace the joy of children?" Tom, surprisingly, joined in, his voice colder than I had ever heard. "Yeah, Sarah, when are you planning to settle down? This career isn't everything." The words stung deeply, but more than that, his sudden shift felt like a betrayal. "I thought you were proud of me," I said softly, my voice barely holding back the hurt. The conversation shifted after that, but the tension hung thick over the table, much like the aroma of the pot roast being served. Tom barely looked at me, and with each passing minute, his demeanor grew more distant, mirroring the judgment in his mother's eyes. Just as dessert was being served, Tom stood abruptly, tossing his napkin onto the table. "You need to know your place, Sarah. You're my wife, not my competitor," he said, his voice booming. My heart pounded as I rose to my feet. "Being your wife doesn't mean I should give up my dreams, Tom. I deserve respect, not this." In a moment that still haunts me, Tom's hand came down, striking me across the face. The sound, sharp, loud, echoed through the room, freezing everyone in place. I stood there, hand trembling against my cheek, as the pain spread across my face and deeper into my heart. Without saying a word, I turned and walked away. The screech of my chair against the floor seemed to scream louder than anything anyone could have said. My heels clicked against the cold marble as I headed toward the front door. I didn't look back as I grabbed my purse and stepped out into the crisp night air. The soft click of the door behind me was the end of one chapter, and the beginning of something I couldn't yet fully understand. In that instant, I knew my marriage was over. I had to leave, to find a place where ambition wasn't something to be ashamed of. I needed space to breathe, to rediscover who I was after being lost in someone else's shadow for too long. As I drove away, the house slowly disappearing in the rearview mirror, I was flooded with both fear and relief. I was truly alone, but for the first time in ages, I felt a flicker of something fierce and undeniable: freedom. This was the start of a new chapter, and I was ready to embrace wherever it would take me. The next morning, sunlight streamed into my small apartment, and waking up felt like stepping into a new life. The events of the night before were both distant and raw, lingering at the edges of my mind. My phone buzzed relentlessly with messages of concern and confusion from friends who'd already heard whispers of what had happened. I ignored them, focusing on the only thing that mattered right now. The first call I made was to a highly recommended divorce attorney. "I need to file for divorce," I said, the words coming out more firmly than I expected. "It's urgent." "Understood," came the calm reply. "I'll prepare the initial paperwork. Can you come in this afternoon to discuss the details?" "Yes, I'll be there." Hanging up, a small surge of victory ran through me. There was no turning back now. At work, I tried to maintain an air of normalcy, but my mind was scattered. My boss, Mr. Daniels, noticed. "Is everything all right, Sarah?" "I'm handling some personal matters, but I can manage," I replied. "Thank you. If you need some time off." "No, I'd prefer to stay busy, honestly." He gave a nod of understanding. "Just let me know if you need anything." Grateful for his support, I threw myself into the day's tasks. The familiar routine was comforting, and my colleagues' kindness made it easier to breathe, even amid the chaos of my unraveling personal life. Around midday, Jenna, one of my closest work friends, stopped by my desk. I heard about last night. Sarah, are you okay? It's been tough, but I'll get through it, I said, offering a small smile. You're stronger than you know, and if you ever need to crash at my place or just talk, my door's always open. Thanks, Jenna, I really appreciate that. Drinks after work? My treat, she added with a wink, trying to lighten the mood. Later that evening, over drinks, Jenna and I talked about everything. Despite the turmoil brewing in my life, the laughter and sense of normalcy were a welcome relief, even if only for a few hours. When I got back to my apartment, I checked my phone. Multiple missed calls from Tom. I hesitated for a moment, wondering whether I should call him back, but I decided against it. Instead, I sent a text. I've filed for divorce. Please respect my space during this time. His response came instantly, laced with desperation. Can we talk about this, please, Sarah? I didn't mean. I replied, firm but final. I need space. Tom, good night. As I put down my phone, a storm of emotions churned within me, sadness, relief, anger, and, most of all, determination. I was on the path to freedom now. I glanced around my modest yet comforting apartment, feeling a deep sense of calm settle over me. This space was mine, my sanctuary. No one here could hurt me. I thought about Tom and how his choices, guided by his mother's toxic influence, had led him down this path. He had pushed away the one person who had always been by his side. It was tragic, really, how he had allowed himself to be consumed by misguided pride, but that was no longer my burden to carry. Lying in bed that night, I realized something profound. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was stepping into a phase of life where I could truly begin to live. Tomorrow, I would be stronger, and the day after, even more so. This was the start of something new, and I was ready for it. As my career continued to ascend, I found myself deeply engaged in larger, more impactful marketing campaigns. My network grew, and I started connecting with industry leaders, hosting webinars, and leading workshops that showcased not only my expertise but also my growing reputation as a leader. One busy Monday morning, as I reviewed campaign proposals, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was Lisa, a well-known figure in the industry. Sarah, I've heard a bit about what's been going on in your personal life. I'm really sorry you had to go through that, she said, her voice both sympathetic and professional. Thank you, Lisa. It's been a challenge, but I'm getting through it, I responded, keeping my tone steady. Actually, I've been thinking, there's an opening for a keynote speaker at a conference next month. The theme is resilience and leadership, and I think your story, both professional and personal, could really inspire others. What do you say? The offer took me by surprise. It was an opportunity I hadn't expected, but one that seemed to fit perfectly with where I was headed. I couldn't pass up the opportunity. I'd be honored. Lisa, thank you, I said, knowing this was a pivotal moment for my career. As my reputation soared, rumors about Tom began to circulate. It wasn't long before those whispers reached the ears of people who had once respected him. During a routine industry meetup, I overheard fragments of conversation about him. He's looking for work again, one executive muttered under his breath. After what he did to Sarah, no one's going to hire him, the other replied, shaking his head. While my career thrived, Tom found himself struggling, trapped in the consequences of his actions. He reached out to me several times, hoping to mend his tarnished reputation. One afternoon, I received a text from him. Can we meet? I need your help. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him for coffee. Sarah, I'm sorry, I was wrong, Tom began, his voice low and filled with regret. I've lost everything. I can't find a job, and it feels like every door is closed. I looked at him, a familiar yet distant figure. Tom, I'm not here to fix the past. You made your choices, and now you're living with the consequences. But you could talk to people, tell them I've changed, he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. I shook my head gently. It's not just my story anymore, Tom. The professional community talks, and they know what happened. You can't undo the choices you made by asking for a favor. As I left the cafe, I felt a mix of pity and resolve. Tom was facing a hard lesson about the lasting impact of his actions, and no one could spare him from that. Back at work, I poured myself into my projects with renewed energy. What had once felt like personal trials were now shaping my professional success. It was a bittersweet realization, how hardship could lead to triumph. But I knew I was on the right path, one built on my values and the future I wanted to create. When my divorce was finalized, it felt like I could finally exhale after holding my breath for far too long. This new chapter wasn't just about moving on, it was about channeling everything I'd been through to fuel my future. At work, my responsibilities grew, and I launched a mentorship program for young women in marketing, inspired by my journey of overcoming obstacles. During one mentorship session, I met Ava, an ambitious intern who reminded me of myself at her age. One day, during a meeting, she looked at me with curiosity in her eyes and her notebook poised. "Sarah, how do you handle criticism, especially when people doubt whether you belong?" I smiled, feeling a wave of recognition. "You listen, you learn, and then you let your work speak for itself. Don't let anyone's doubt define your reality. Use it as fuel to push harder." Ava nodded thoughtfully, jotting down notes. Watching her, I realized that this, mentoring others, sharing what I'd learned, was a part of my success I hadn't anticipated but had come to cherish. "And what if it feels impossible?" she asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. "Then you lean on those around you," I said, meeting her eyes. "Build a strong network, seek mentors, and never be afraid to ask for help. No one does this alone. We're always stronger together." The mentorship program was just one part of my ever-expanding life. My social circle grew as well, and I was frequently invited to speak at industry events and gatherings, sharing not only my professional expertise but also my personal journey. At one such event, a networking dinner for top marketing professionals, I was approached by Derek, an old colleague who had heard about my recent successes. "Sarah, I have to say, your talk was incredible. How do you keep pushing forward after all that's happened?" Derek asked, admiration evident in his tone. "It's about not letting the past dictate where you're headed," I replied, accepting his praise with a smile. "Every challenge teaches you something, and you just keep moving forward." The conversation quickly shifted to ideas for collaboration, and Derek posed an intriguing suggestion. "Have you ever thought about writing a book? Your story could inspire so many people." The idea caught me off guard but excited me. By the end of the evening, I had exchanged contact information with a publisher in attendance. It was clear that every connection, every conversation, was opening new doors for me, a sign of how far I'd come. As my confidence grew, so did the scope of my career. I hosted workshops, led ambitious marketing campaigns, and became a sought-after voice on resilience and empowerment. Each speaking engagement and workshop felt like I was sharing pieces of my journey, transforming my past struggles into lessons for others. In many ways, it was healing. One evening, after a whirlwind day of back-to-back events, I lay in bed reflecting on how far I had come. I was no longer the woman quietly enduring at a family dinner, silenced by fear and shame. Now, I was a leader, a mentor, and a survivor, someone who had turned trials into triumphs. This wasn't just a new beginning, it was the continuation of a journey I was proud to claim as my own. Months passed, and the echoes of my past with Tom had faded into little more than a distant memory, overshadowed by the vibrant life I was leading. But one afternoon, over coffee with a mutual friend, Melissa, those old memories resurfaced. "Sarah, I wasn't sure how to bring this up," Melissa began cautiously, "but Tom's been asking about you. He's really struggling, says he regrets everything." I took a thoughtful sip of my coffee, processing Melissa's words. "Regret often comes when people face the consequences of their actions," I said calmly. "He wants to talk, maybe apologize. He seems genuinely sincere, Sarah." "Melissa, I appreciate you letting me know, but that chapter of my life is closed. I've moved on," I said firmly. Melissa nodded, recognizing the finality in my voice. We shifted the conversation, leaving Tom's regrets where they belonged, in the past. Despite Tom's repeated messages and calls, I remained resolute in my decision to maintain my distance. My silence wasn't out of bitterness but out of a necessity to preserve my well-being. My journey had taught me the crucial importance of boundaries and self-respect. In the months that followed, my professional life continued to flourish. I spoke at major conferences, led groundbreaking marketing campaigns, and watched my mentorship program thrive. The impact of my work was both tangible and deeply fulfilling. My story, shared through various platforms and workshops, became a source of inspiration for many facing their own struggles. One evening, as I reflected on the past year, I recognized the depth of my transformation. I hadn't merely survived, I had thrived, building a life full of success and meaning. The knowledge that Tom was out there regretting his choices didn't bring me satisfaction. Instead, it served as a somber reminder of the consequences of undermining and disrespecting others. Closing my journal, filled with plans and reflections, I felt a profound sense of peace. My journey with Tom had sparked a path of empowerment and achievement. My triumph wasn't in his downfall but in my rise, in turning pain into strength, and in living a life defined by my values and vision. As we wrap up this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think Sarah was right to cut Tom out of her life completely? Share your perspectives below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. The bride, Grace Miller, had graduated from a prestigious music college and had a tendency to look down on me, a high school graduate. To my surprise, she insisted I play the piano at my brother's wedding. I had never mentioned that I could play, so her request felt like a deliberate attempt to unsettle me. As I hesitated nervously in front of the piano, Grace leaned in and whispered something startling. "Honestly, I have a real boyfriend besides Jack," she said with a smug smile, making me shiver with anxiety. I could tell that smile was hiding something darker beneath the surface. I'm Alina Johnson, 32, single, and employed at a wedding hall. My family consists solely of my brother and me. After our parents divorced when I was in high school, we lost contact with our father, who never supported us. A few years later, we faced another blow when our mother died in an accident. With no other options, I went straight to work to support both myself and my brother. Jack, my younger brother by 3 years, is sharp and intelligent. He earned a full scholarship, completed his university studies, and secured a job at a well-known company. I was immensely proud of him, especially as he was about to marry. Jack had told me his bride was the daughter of a company executive, beautiful, pleasant, and family-oriented. Grace had graduated from a prestigious music institution and was already giving private piano lessons. She seemed almost perfect. During the holiday season, our families met for the first time. Grace was even more attractive and charming in person than in her photos. She approached me with a request. "I heard you work at a wedding hall. Could we host our wedding there?" "Of course, we'd be delighted to help," I replied, eager to support my brother's special day. Grace's parents were proud and shared stories of her numerous piano awards and competitions. But when her father mentioned a rival who often outperformed Grace, her demeanor shifted. "My daughter always excelled, but there was always this one girl who consistently took first place. Very frustrating. What was her name again?" "Let's not dwell on that," Grace interrupted abruptly, changing the subject. Later, as I stepped outside to take a work call, I saw Grace returning from the restroom. I thanked her for the lovely day. "I appreciate everything you've done for us today. It's been fantastic." Grace's demeanor suddenly shifted again. "A high school graduate is attending today's meeting," she said dismissively, and hurried back into the room, leaving me bewildered. I was left standing there, unable to process her abrupt change in attitude. When I returned to my seat after the call, Grace had resumed her pleasant demeanor, leaving me confused about what had just transpired. "Anne, would you like something to drink?" Grace asked with an air of politeness, handing me the drink list. I must have misheard her, I thought. Not wanting to make a fuss, I kept the incident to myself, and the meeting soon wrapped up. But it became clear that this was no misunderstanding when Grace and I started meeting alone to plan the wedding. Her condescension was palpable. "You don't resemble Jack, who is very attractive," she would remark each time we met, suggesting that I was somehow less appealing. Grace frequently mocked my high school education and my single status with biting sarcasm. "If you have so much time to help others get married, why don't you worry about yourself?" she sneered. "Oh, but you're just a high school graduate. With your background, I doubt you'd find a partner." She took every opportunity to boast about her piano achievements. "I've always been the one winning top prizes in piano competitions, unlike you, who went straight to work after high school," she'd taunt. Her constant barbs took their toll. Although she was set to marry my brother, I couldn't warm up to her. But since Jack had chosen her and their relationship seemed stable, I decided to keep Grace's true nature to myself, enduring her cruelty alone. Months passed, and the wedding day arrived. As Grace was the daughter of an executive, many company employees attended the event. We had arranged special accommodations for them, treating them as VIPs. Although I could have taken the day off as the groom's sister, I wanted to be part of my brother's special day, even if it was from behind the scenes. So, I worked as a staff member until just before the ceremony. With only minutes remaining before the ceremony, 2 of Grace's friends entered the dressing room while I was touching up my makeup. I wanted to greet them, but they were deep in conversation, so I focused on finishing my preparations. Suddenly, their discussion took an unexpected turn. "Hey, did you know Grace is seeing someone else?" one of them said. "I heard he's from the nightclub," She's just marrying Jack to keep up appearances. The other responded, if that's true, I feel sorry for the groom, who has no idea, one of Grace's friends remarked. I was struck with panic. The idea of stopping the wedding rushed through my mind, but without solid proof, I couldn't cancel the ceremony. As the wedding ceremony began, my confusion deepened. The guests enjoyed entertainment as the ceremony reached its midpoint, with Grace's friends, all music college graduates, performing beautiful pieces on their instruments. Then, without warning, Grace took the microphone and announced, now my sister-in-law will give a piano presentation. Instantly, all eyes in the hall were on me. I was caught off guard. Grace had never mentioned this, and I had never told her I could play the piano. This was not part of the plan. Grace was supposed to play the piano in the second half of the wedding, and the instrument wasn't even prepared yet. Hearing Grace's announcement, the ceremony staff scrambled to set up the piano while I stood there, frozen in shock. Grace approached the family table and yanked my arm with surprising force. Come with me, she demanded, dragging me toward the piano. Hey, you didn't tell me about this, I whispered, trying to stay calm under the scrutiny of the guests. Grace leaned in, her voice a harsh whisper. When I see you, I can't help but get angry. Annoying you is all I care about. Is that why you're treating me like this? I asked. Exactly, she replied, her smile dripping with malice. In that moment, my disdain for her was palpable. If I refused to perform, the ceremony would be ruined. Grace's threats were clear. If I cried in front of my father, the marriage could be annulled, and Jack might lose his job. Did she really want to risk her brother's job over her petty grievances? And did she really want to marry someone she described as boring? Grace's confession confirmed the rumors I had overheard. As I processed her words, the piano was finally set up. Let's see what you've got, Grace taunted as she directed me to the piano. I sat down on the bench, my body trembling, and my breath coming in heavy gasps. Maybe it's too much to ask of someone who only graduated high school. Perhaps you've never even touched a piano, Grace sneered, her triumphant smile widening. The audience's murmur grew louder. Noticing my distress, a staff member approached with concern. Are you okay? She asked gently. Meanwhile, Grace's satisfied smirk lingered at the edge of her lips. Play if you can, but it seems I might have been wrong about you. Sorry for the misunderstanding, Grace mocked. But then my brother spoke up, shifting the mood. Don't you know my sister? Jack said. With that, I broke the silence and began playing. I chose Dream of Love, a classic wedding piece. As the melody filled the room, the previously noisy venue fell silent. By the time I finished, the hall erupted in thunderous applause. My colleagues, who had no idea of my piano skills, were visibly moved. In contrast, Grace's face turned a deep shade of red, her frustration evident as she bit her lip. You were so nervous and trembling earlier. How did you play so well? Grace demanded, astonished. I didn't mention it, but I studied at a music college overseas, I replied. Grace staggered back when I revealed the university's name. By the way, I was trembling because I was nervous, I added with a smile. I was excited to be playing the piano again after such a long time. Grace, visibly shocked, exclaimed, that's the college I wanted to attend but couldn't. How could someone from a single mother family like you manage to go there? I've been taking piano lessons since I was a little girl, I explained. I had support from those around me. However, when my mother passed away, I had to leave music school to come home and help my brother. I never mentioned my piano background to avoid overshadowing you. It seems my brother hadn't mentioned it to you either. Grace, clearly unwilling to acknowledge my achievements, tried to dismiss my past. Just then, one of Grace's friends, noticing my expression, suddenly recognized me. Is she, by any chance, Alina Garcia? One of Grace's friends asked. Oh, if that's the case, she's so incredible that we can't even compete, the friend said, recognizing me. She had attended my music college and remembered me well. Miss Garcia from the United States was known for her exceptional piano skills. When Grace heard the name Garcia, she looked at me with a stunned expression. Are you the Alina Garcia who won all those awards in competitions? She asked, incredulous. I can't say I won all the awards, but I did win quite a few, I replied. Yes, that's right. I was the one who always stood in front of you at every competition. Alina Garcia was my name before my parents divorced, I continued. As Grace remained speechless, the MC approached me. It was a marvelous performance. Would you like to say something into the microphone? The MC asked. Seizing the opportunity to expose Grace, I took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, I have something important to reveal. Grace is having an affair. A gasp swept through the crowd. Grace's parents looked on in shock, their mouths agape. No, that's not true. She's just making things up. Grace tried to deny, but I quickly connected my phone to the speaker and played a recording. Honestly, I have another boyfriend. I only married Jack to appease my parents. Grace's voice echoed through the hall. I had anticipated her deceit and recorded her confession. Her face turned ashen as the truth was exposed. You disgraceful girl, Grace's father shouted, his voice filled with anger. Chaos erupted as the guests reacted to the revelation. I'm sorry, Papa, I'm sorry, Grace pleaded, but her father was unmoved. I can never forgive you. You are no longer my daughter, he declared, cutting her off. Jack, now furious, joined in the confrontation, condemning Grace's actions. How dare you deceive me? I'm not marrying you, my brother declared, his voice filled with fury. Please, reconsider, Grace begged, but my brother's anger was unyielding. Apologize to my sister too, he demanded, pushing her away. Grace looked desperate, floundering for a solution. Please forgive me, everyone, please forgive me too, she pleaded, still focused solely on herself, with no apology directed at me. You've been insulting me for so long, and now you expect me to forgive you? You take far too many things for granted, I said coldly. How will I ever manage if Papa and Jack abandon me? Grace cried, revealing that the man she was having an affair with was financially irresponsible and that she couldn't rely on his money alone. I don't care about your situation. I'm not going to forgive you, I responded firmly. In a final, desperate attempt, Grace bowed her head to me. I apologize for everything I've done. I'm truly sorry, she said, tears streaming down her face. Her makeup was smeared, and her eyes were dark from crying. It was a pitiful sight, but considering everything she had done to me, I couldn't bring myself to forgive her. I feel nothing for you. You insulted me for graduating from high school and hurt my dear brother. Never show your face in front of us again, I stated resolutely. Grace broke down in tears and was escorted out of the ceremony hall by her relatives. Her parents apologized to the remaining guests, and the wedding was abruptly cancelled. After the guests left, my brother and I had a heart-to-heart. I'm really sorry if I caused you pain by falling for her, he said, genuinely regretful. I'll be fine. Are you going to be okay? I asked, concerned for him. I need some time to sort out my feelings, but I'll get back on my feet soon, he assured me. I believed him and decided to support him through this tough period. Eventually, he and Grace officially ended their engagement. Jack received compensation for his distress, and Grace's parents cut her off, evicting her from their home. Struggling without their support, Grace could no longer afford her piano lessons and had to take on part-time work, which was insufficient due to her lack of skills. Her boyfriend also left her as soon as he realized she had no more financial resources. Jack, on the other hand, threw himself into his work and was soon promoted. He was thrilled that his hard work had paid off. As for me, I began receiving more requests to play the piano at wedding ceremonies, and my schedule became increasingly busy. I look forward to bringing joy to many more people through my piano performances.